Welcome to Elder Scrolls Spotlight, a podcast about roleplay and role-playing inside the Elder Scrolls Online MMORPG. My name is Mikey, and once again, I am your friendly neighborhood commentator. In an effort to follow the trends of the last few episodes, I once again have a guest who I hope will expand my horizons and broaden my scope of understanding. She was first recommended to me by the human Floyd way back in episode 1, and then again by Rockthor Shattershield in the previous episode. Heck, she was even recommended to me by PMs as well. So, with so many recommendations, I just had to have a sit down and see what makes her tick. You know her as House Champion Moriel of House Ravnor, and as the Dunmer Varesi Sethran. For those of you that were there during the Tales of the Second Era Skyrim plot, you may remember her as the infamous Jurok Deathcaller. Tonight, it's my hope to talk to her about her experiences in RP, her views on vampirism, and get into as many tangents as possible. Ladies and gentlemen, after tripping myself so much on trying to get this introduction right, we have Moriel. Welcome to the show. God help you.
Hi, Mikey. It's good to be here. I hope you're ready for like a bazillion tangents.
My body is ready. My mind is not. Well, let's just get into it. Where are you from?
I'm from, I wouldn't say all over. I'm mostly from the Southeast. I was born in middle of nowhere, like Alabama. Ended up moving around a lot over to places in Georgia, North Carolina, and currently I'm in Atlanta.
When you say middle of nowhere, do you mean like a really, really small town to the point where there are no stoplights or anything like that?
Not like that small, but the part of Alabama, I was originally from like Thomasville, Alabama, and I categorize its location as 2 hours away from Montgomery, Mobile, and Tuscaloosa. So
Okay.
2 hours away from anything of note.
So somewhere between a horse and a cow.
Yeah, pretty much.
And how old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
I am 28.
You don't sound like it.
I know.
You sound like in all honesty, if I had to pick an age, I'd probably say like 20-ish.
Thank
How do you do
you.
it?
Thank you.
How do you do it? Do you bathe the blood of virgins?
So once every new moon, I sacrifice an animal to save. I mean, no.
I'm gonna stop being stupid. I apologize, but
No, please continue.
Moving on then. How did you first get into video games?
Oh boy, are you ready for a story? So I first got into video games. It depends on, I guess, what you mean by get into. Like, what were the first games I played, or like what really got me into video games?
Let's go with what really got you into video games, and then we'll go into your first video game. How about that?
Oh boy, I think it was Animal Crossing, which is probably sounds really weird. Before then, I didn't play as like religiously as I do now. Before that, I played a couple games. I almost never finished video games before then. But with Animal Crossing, it ended up bringing both me and my brother into playing it, and we kind of like took turns playing it and messing up the town around each other and doing stuff like that.
Now, I only know Animal Crossing came out on 2 platforms. I think one was for like the GameCube. That's the one I played anyway.
Yeah, that's the one I played. I mean, before that, I was I've been playing video games since like '95, but when I first, like, as a 5-year-old, got up on my parents' computers and pulled up one of the games that like came with the computer, which was this like cartoony um, film noir like point and click adventure. Um, and after that, I did stuff like, I had a Game Boy and I played. I think the game I actually first completed was Wario World, like the original Wario World.
Oh man, that came out for like the original Game Boy.
Yeah.
And like, oh, That sends me on a trip. I remember.
That game was so hard for like little me to complete. Like as I was like earlier today, as I was thinking back to this stuff, because yeah, I remember you gave me the kind of the script of this is kind of what we're going to talk about. So I started thinking about it, and I vividly remember now um, the final level in that video game, where the only way to beat it, unless you're like really really skilled, is to ignore the flight power up at the start of the thing, kill everything up to the boss, and then go all the way back to beginning to get the flight power up so that you can beat the boss.
I remember I played that game and I played Pokemon way before I knew how to read, so I had no idea what I was doing. And I was always stuck on I think the one with the boatload of bullet bills that made it really hard to pass through um a barrier. I can't remember which level it was, but I had no idea what I was doing, and that didn't exactly help.
See, I didn't know what I was doing either. I was just really stubborn and just kept failing until I got it.
So Wario World and that point and click noir games, those were your two first video games?
Yeah, that, and I think the this is going to sound weird. The Toy Story Game Boy game. Like my parents just got this for me. I was just like, what is this? It was hard. Like that is a hard game.
The only Toy Story game that I can remember was Toy Story 2 for the PlayStation 1, and that was like a third person to first person shooter. Oh man, that was fun. Good times, good times. So moving on then, are there any video games that you're looking forward to in the horizon?
Oh man. There were a couple. I'm sort of blanking on them. Mostly, I'm looking forward to Fallout 76. My girlfriend is a huge Fallout fan, and she's getting that, and so we're going to kind of. I hate that it's not coming out on PC, so I can't play with her. We have to actually take turns playing. Uh,
Are you sure? I think I read somewhere that Fallout 76 is coming out on Steam.
is it? Is if it is, I'm going to be pretty happy because when they first announced it, they just said it was coming out on Xbox, and that's it.
Oh no, I'm wrong. It says here that it won't launch on Steam. I apologize. My mistake. Sorry to the audience who got their hopes up. That was unintentional. Whoopsie.
That hurt.
I got to get my facts straight. That's something to work on. But yes, it is coming for exclusivity. Exclusivity. That's the word. Yeah, for Xbox.
Kingdom Hearts 3.
Oh yes. Oh, that's 15 years in the making. Oh dear God.
I am so hyped. You have no idea. I played all of the Kingdom Hearts games.
Oh sure, same here. Well, with the exception of the most recent one, 1.5 and 2.5 final remix or something like that.
Yeah.
But with the everyone else I've played, and oh, that's Tetsuya Nomura. Why did you keep us waiting like that, man?
Aqua.
You know what my favorite moment Kingdom Hearts is?
But
When they're at the beach in the end, and Riku kind of falls to his knee, and because he's been wandering the darkness for so long. Then I think Sora helps him up, and when they grab hands, he passes him that little star flower from his hand to Riku's, which is like a perfect callback to the first game. And I was like, in 12-year-old me was like, yeah, power, friendship. It's great.
yeah.
It's interesting because I believe Mr. Nomura said that Kingdom Hearts 3 is going to be the end to the Keyblade War. So that implies that they're still going to pump out more Kingdom Hearts, but who knows? We'll probably have to wait 30 years before the next series. That's going to be fun.
Been 87 years.
What do you like about Kingdom Hearts? What makes it stand out to you versus all the other video games you played?
See, if you asked me this when I was like, 12 playing Kingdom Hearts 2, I'd probably have a much different answer than I have now. A lot of it's kind of that nostalgia factor. But really, I do enjoy the fast paced gameplay. I enjoy. I really like. I've spent some time catching up on the storyline, and I like. Yeah, I like the characters. The characters are kind of what does it for me. I like how interesting they are. The story itself may be kind of convoluted at times, but
Oh yeah, it's pretty dense.
yeah, the characters are what makes it for me.
Hmm. It was kind of hard for me to follow the story at the beginning. So I'm like, wait, so that old dude is Xehanort. So does that mean Xehanort is Xehanort? You mean he took over Ventus's body and now he's Ansem? Wait, no, that's not Ansem. He's still Xehanort. Wait, now he lost his memory. I was just, it's all over the place when you think about it.
Yeah, I think that the biggest problem with that series is that they don't tell the story in a chronological order by game release. So we have like Kingdom Hearts 1 and Kingdom Hearts 2, but during Kingdom Hearts 1 was, Aqua was in the darkness, and before that, it was Birth by Sleep and all that stuff. And it's all coming out at different times. So you had to have played the other games to understand what's going on in the next in the series.
Sure. And then between 1 and 2, you had, I remember, Chain of Memories and Simple and Clean, which I listened to almost
Religiously, yeah.
religiously, because that is such an amazing song. I don't care what the hell anybody says. Ichihara Hikaru has the voice of an angel, god damn it. Okay, so Kingdom Hearts 3. Anything else? Elder Scrolls 6, maybe?
We're not getting that for like 5 more years. Don't let Todd lie to you and say that we're going to get that. We're going to get their space game way before Elder Scrolls 6.
I have a theory that we're gonna get it on 2/22/22. That's probably when we're gonna get Elder Scrolls 6, because it'll be a perfect it'll be aligned with 11/11/11. That's my theory anyway.
Fair enough. Also Red Dead Redemption 2.
Oh yes. That's oh, we're so close, isn't it? That's gonna come out in like what, October?
October 26th.
Oh, I can't wait. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be really great.
Oh, Super Smash Brothers.
Isn't it already out? I thought it came out in
No,
December.
Super Smash Bros. Ultimate's coming out in December.
Oh, I thought that came last December. Oh, well, they're bringing my boy Snake back. That's gonna be great. Ah, I love Snake.
They reduced his ass, which was like, why would you do this? Kojima would be sad.
That they did, but I'm weirdly okay with that because he's still gonna be kicking ass anyway. They've widened the roster up to the point where I don't even know some of the characters anymore. It's really, really, they're digging deep for some of their rosters.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they're bringing Bayonetta back too, so that's really all that matters.
Really, Bayonetta wasn't that.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a roster for what's been announced. I think they're also bringing back the old characters from previous games.
Okay. Well, they should. That'd be great. But I don't know. Bayonetta was something of an anomaly within the Nintendo landscape when I think about it. Like, how is it that the game was ever ported to the Wii, given its sort of, I don't want to say risque, its risque nature?
Look, man, Bayonetta's hot. Just give it to me, all right? Just get off my back.
No denying, no denying. But she's got nothing on my boy Dante. That's all I would say on that.
We'll agree to disagree.
I love it. I love it. And then moving on then. From video games, we get into MMOs. How'd you get into them?
How did I get into MMOs? Well, this is actually the first MMO I've role played in. I wasn't but this isn't like the first MMO I've played in. I played in WoW for a bit on like a PvP server. I think sometime in high school and like undergrad, so a good like eight or so years ago. I think I joined WoW like at the tail end of Burning Crusade and played all the way through the very beginning of Cataclysm. Other than that, I really haven't played other MMOs outside of ESO.
And getting into the subject of RP, Floyd mentioned that you guys might have role played on the same forum together.
Okay, so that's the story. I'll introduce that when I say like how I got into role playing.
Okay.
So I got into role playing way before I knew what role playing was. This is back when I was in tail end of like elementary school going into middle school. So like I was on. It's gonna sound weird. I was on Neopets, and they had this forum feature where you can make these little forums about any kind of topic. And I would spend time like going around looking at different forums because I was kind of a voracious reader and I still am. Um, and I went around looking at different forums. I saw this one forum that was like an RP forum. And I had no idea what it was, but it looked cool. And so I decided I'm going to go ahead and join. And it turns out that Floyd and I were on that same forum at the same time as each other. And we didn't actually know it until I think like a year and a half ago when we did this big New Year's Eve Skype broadcast thing that we were doing. And we were talking about it, and we were talking about when we first got started role playing. And he started talking about RPing on Neopets, and I had this kind of like, oh God, this sounds really familiar. Hey Floyd, wait a minute. Was the RP about this? And he's like, yeah. Was it named this? He's like, yeah. Oh God. We were in the same thing when we were both in like elementary school.
Oh man. I think that's a trip though, to know that you guys sort of knew each other even before quote unquote knowing each other. So that's pretty cool. So from Neopets, where did you go? Where else did you go in RP?
So from that, I kind of became a computer kid. I was around my computer a lot more than I was outside later on as I was in middle school and high school. Mostly because I didn't really have a chance to like play outside or do a lot of sports. Um, so I ended up getting involved with a bunch of different RP forums. Um, it started out, and I was still not a very good writer then. I kind of like I think back to how I wrote in both Neopets and these online forums when I was first starting, and I kind of shudder for like how like first time RP how bad it was. But I think the first one I got into was a Naruto RP forum, and if that doesn't make you cringe, I really don't know what will. I used to really be into anime and stuff at the
You're
time.
talking to a dude that RP'd on Sonic the Hedgehog forums. I don't think that you can cringe as much as I can when I think about it. Go ahead.
Don't worry, like my girlfriend used to have like a bunch of Sonic OCs, so I'm not even bothered.
Okay, so are you still into anime? Just curious.
Yeah, I am. I really like anime. I mainly consume it over like manga over than anime.
Okay, same here. Same here.
But yeah, I was part of there's this big like Naruto fan forum that was pretty much like the biggest on the internet that we could find. And it started out there, and it was their like Naruto RP forums, and until we got like our own site um, called like the Sato or whatever it was. But what we ended up doing is that we ended up forming like one of the first big like Naruto RP sites, and that I was doing that pretty much all throughout middle school, even when that I think they expanded to like a Bleach and a Full Metal Alchemist forum later on, and then after that, once the site went down because the guy running it couldn't afford to keep it open, um, the people who were all together on like AOL Instant Messenger or like AIM or something, um, all got together and made like other RP forums doing different things. Um, God, I think we went like through 4 different forums by that point. One of which like I ended up making like this my own. I think I might still have it, but I made this text-based version of a Final Fantasy Tactics game with a complete like text-based RP system and everything.
Final Fantasy Tactics. Now, that was a game that came out for, was it the Game Boy Advanced? I think it came out for the Game Boy Advanced.
Well, it came out I think for like something else first, but they had a Tactics Advance, and that's the one I played.
Oh, gotcha. I remember playing that in like, oh boy, 5th grade or something. This is just because I rarely get to indulge this side of conversation, but what mangas do you read now, if you don't mind me asking?
What mangas do I not read? I think is the better question. I
My
read a
Hero
lot of,
Academia.
yeah, I read pretty much all the popular mangas. I read a bunch of like really obscure ones. I
Hajime no Ippo.
I don't read that. I don't like sports anime or manga all that much. My one of my friends is a huge Hajime no Ippo fan, but I am just kind of not.
It's boxing. That's all I can say, and that's why I love it. Let's see.
Speaking of that though, did you ever watch Megalobox?
No, I have not. What's it about?
It is like a futuristic boxing anime.
Megalobox.
Yeah, Megalobox, like Megalodon, but like Megalobox, and
Okay.
it is really really good.
This dude looks like Spike from Bebop.
I know, right?
Whoa, what the hell? And so the difference is almost uncanny. Interesting.
It's the story of this. It's kind of like this futuristic setting where people are using these like cybernetic boxing arm things, and this guy like Scrappy Boxer kind of rising to the top of this, this big national tournament, earning the right to enter and all that stuff without any of the cybernetic stuff. And
So it's just all
it's
him, no cybernetic.
it's all him, no cybernetics, and it's pretty fun.
I can respect that. I'm gonna watch that after this. It looks cool. All right, all right. Have you ever seen Dead Man Wonderland?
Yes, I no, I didn't see it. I read the manga.
Right, right. Ooh, that's a manga to read to your children, he said sarcastically.
I I I mean, it's not something you'd read to your children, but I liked it. I like the twist reveals at the end. That was good.
Sure, sure. You know what? A manga that was kind of overrated that I never really got into. What was it? Code Geass. That was
Code Geass.
yeah.
All right, if you're ready to fight, I'll fight you on that because I love
I'm sorry.
Code
I'm sorry.
Geass.
Look, I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying there are some tropes in there that are like, oh, where have I seen this before? Oh,
Look,
look.
I know it's horseshit. So like, have you ever watched JoJo?
Oh no.
Okay, so
That's
so,
not.
so
That's not. That's. I know you're not gonna throw some shade on my boy JoJo there.
no, no, I love JoJo. I'm gonna make a comparison. So you know how
Okay.
JoJo is? It's very over the top on purpose. It's like you don't turn your brain off, but you kind of turn off the critical part of your brain, being like, "This is
Right.
stupid," because
Suspension of disbelief.
yeah, because you're just like it's ridiculous because that's part of the atmosphere of it.
Yeah.
Code Geass is very much the same. It takes all of the like over the top melodramatic like Gundam tropes and it just plays them completely seriously in a way that's very entertaining.
Yeah. Oh boy, Gundam's been going on for a long while. I wonder how it keeps going till now. It's just some of the. It's always about Gundam is always about war. No matter what, it's always about war. And you can only talk about war for so long before it kind of gets tiresome. Yet they still keep milking it.
I mean,
Uh,
it's they do it by completely rebooting the universe a lot. So you end up with like the original Mobile Suit Gundam is not the same as say Gundam Wing or G Gundam
right. G Gundam was all
is the
shonen.
best.
Yeah, it is the best. And my boy Domon with his shining finger, and burning Gundam and God Gundam and all that stuff. Love that shit to death. But that was definitely that was definitely like a left turn for the
Okay,
creators.
so I've just remembered the story. I'll tell on that. So I'm a fan of G Gundam. I especially love Master Asia because I love characters that are just so completely and seriously over the top. It's very entertaining to me. After sometime in high school, after like the RP forums I was in kind of fell through and the community broke apart, I went looking for other, and this is before I got into like D&D or anything. And I went looking for other RP forums to be on, and Sword Art Online had first come out, and while I hate Sword Art Online now because I think it's a very badly written web novel and anime. Go ahead.
It denigrated. Like the first season was pretty good, then towards the second season it just turned into another stereotypical harem. That's what I think anyway.
Yeah. And I can, anything I've said, I would say has already been said by people like Mother's Basement on just how bad it is. But I was on a Sword Art Online RP forum, and I went, okay, I'm not a huge fan of Sword Art Online, but people I know are here. What can I play that will be entertaining for me and it will allow me to mess with people? I said, I'm going to play Master Asia. So I make a Master Asia XP in Sword Art Online.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
And
What'd you call him?
I forget what I called him. I think I just made up some kind of Japanese name. But I think I just straight out called his. Oh no, I didn't call him Master Asia. I don't remember what I called him in game, but I gave him Master Asia's bombastic personality and had him just intrude on other people's threads and being like, "I am here."
I bet that garnered you a lot of attention.
Yeah, people were just losing their shit over it.
Speaking of over the topness of anime, you know which series is over the top, but still keeps it fun.
Which one?
Gurren Lagann. That is.
Yeah, it's weird to call that a classic now, but it really is.
It only came out in like what, 03, 04 or so.
That's still like almost like that's like 15 years ago.
Oh Jesus.
God, I'm old. But yeah, Gurren Lagann is just like taking all the like over the top shonen attributes of like Gundam animes and just taking it to like another level.
No lie, it was manly as fuck though. I gotta say, it was manly as fuck, and I don't care what anybody says. But my boy, when crap, what was his name?
Simon.
Not Simon.
Kamina.
Kamina, sorry. Yeah, how could I get that name wrong?
Everyone cried over his death. You don't feel bad.
I kind of had to like step out for a few seconds, like, okay, I need to walk. What's happening? I think that was the first anime that I watched in which they actually killed off a main character, and it made me feel something. Like I don't know. Kamino wasn't the only one who died though either. They killed off that other dude who liked the girl with the bikini that I'm totally great with names on this.
I can't remember either. Yoko?
Yeah.
Yoko, yeah.
Yoko. A lot of guys crushed on Yoko, so, and I'm sure I'm pissing off the otakus in the audience. I'm sorry, my fellow otakus. I did not mean to garner dishonor.
We're old. We can't remember things.
But oh man, that was great. I think now mostly my manga feed, I keep saying manga because I'm a stereotypical idiot, mostly consists of My Hero Academia. I cannot stop fawning over just how good it is.
Have you read the recent chapter?
The last chapter.
I forget which chapter, like 94 or 194.
194. I think I have.
One where they're okay. I'm pretty hyped as fuck because like we finally get to see Class 1B in their actual hero costumes, and
spoiler alert.
I don't care.
Okay, good. You're not one of those people. Thank the Lord.
Whatever. I'm not actually spoiling anything because nothing's happened.
Well, one of the things that I like about My Hero Academia, and never mind the fight between All Might and One for All, that shit was amazing. But never mind that fight. but the mere fact that it's always evolving. Nothing ever stays stagnant. So, like, if we were to look at Bleach, for example, with all due respect to Mr. Kubo, if we look at Bleach, that followed the same formula every damn time. A friend of Ichigo's gets kidnapped. Ichigo tries to save them. Ichigo fails. He has to do some training. He becomes a badass. He goes, saves that friend. Some unforeseen twist happens. That's not exactly an unforeseen twist. He saves them. They go back to school. Rinse and repeat. It happened with Rukia. It happened with Orihime. It happened with um crap. Who was the dude with the glasses?
Ishida, whatever his name is. Yeah.
It happened with Ishida. It becomes pretty predictable. But with My Hero Academia, the author's not afraid to explore different avenues, which I totally love. One great example is with again, I'm great with names. The new number one hero. What's his name? Endeavor. Yes, thank you. So this is actually interesting. So the fact that the author has given Endeavor some screen time in the newer chapters has actually sparked a controversy because Endeavor had abused his children, and now he's giving him an arc, and he's showing him to be more of a sympathetic character. And they're like, "Why are you giving sympathy to a child abuser? That's not right."
So I praise the mangaka of this manga for doing something like that, because it does show that even abusers are not like total monsters. Which is actually kind of, I feel, good for children who are undergoing abuse, because one thing you got to understand is that when we portray people who are abusers only as like obvious monsters, that kind of internalizes the idea of, oh, this person, this family member that's abusing me is not an abuser, because they have their moments of like being a decent person, interspersed through all their abuse. The thing with My Hero Academia is that he makes no excuses for Endeavor. His children hate him. Like at the end of that arc, Shoto and his brothers straight up say, like, I hate you. You're a terrible person. Like, I can see that you're trying to become a better person, but that's not gonna, make up for all the horrible things you've done.
They definitely make it known to him, and they definitely, I think his name's Enji, that's his real name. They make it known to Enji that he's got a long road ahead, to which Enji quietly accepts, I suppose. I think one of the things that I think is a great point of empathy, yeah, that's the word, for me anyway, is the dynamic between him and his wife that hospitalized. Because reading back and thinking back, especially now that we're talking about it, I think it's safe to say, at least in my perspective, that Endeavor wasn't always obsessed with number one, at least not to the point of where he started abusing his children anyway. It's something that happened over time, and slowly just ate up his whole life. But now that he has it, he's looking around, and much like his quirk, he has burned a lot of bridges, or he has caused an immense amount of pain towards those close to him. So he's got to figure out a way to move forward. At least that's what I think, which is a beautiful character arc in my perspective.
There's one point I disagree with that, is that, I mean, they straight up say he married his wife purely as a quirk marriage so that he would get a child that could beat All Might. So even then, he entered into a marriage under false pretenses. So even then, it was like eating him up. But I do agree that it's good to show that you can take a character like Endeavor and have him be, face all of his faults and slowly begin to kind of crawl out of that hole that the character was in.
Right, and you're totally right there. I completely forgot that detail. The reason I went to that, I came up with that conclusion, was because I can't remember which chapter, but when they show his wife, they show like, oh yeah, Endeavor brought her this flower that she told him she liked when they were first going out. So that to me was like, oh yeah, okay, there's some amount of empathy there, maybe. Maybe there's a human underneath all that monstrosity. Who knows? Gotta love it. Gotta love it. What is your favorite anime, if you have any?
I really don't have one. People ask me this kind of thing all the time, and I'm just like, I like a lot of different animes, and I kind of maybe Code Geass, but though I'd also say that Code Geass has a lot of faults in it. Maybe Hoseki no Kuni. I really like. I just like that series in general.
Okay, okay. We also touched upon JoJo.
Yeah, JoJo obviously. JoJo's like not even in the running because it's already at the top.
The thing about JoJo is that I gotta hand it to the author. He, assuming we're talking about JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, I just want to make sure.
Yes.
Okay. I gotta hand it to the author. He did something that I don't think many other mangaka did. That he essentially rebooted his universe, which is infinitely interesting when you think about it. So before it was Joseph Joestar, and in England, right? That was the first arc, and then for Steel Ball Run, they have it set in the Old West for America.
Yeah. Actually, it's interesting because when we first went from Phantom Blood, which was the one set in England, all the way to the second arc, which follows the protagonist of the first arc's grandson.
My boy Jonathan.
Yeah, when we went from Jonathan to Joseph, people at first didn't know who Joseph was. They're just like, who is this guy? Until it's explained, hey, this isn't a separate story. Jonathan's story is over. This is now the story of his grandson, and we're just continuing that. I think that was just a really cool way of keeping things fresh, and making it so that you can tell a bunch of different stories in a similar universe, but with related characters, so that the stories of the past carry over to the stories of the future.
Right. Last question: who is your favorite JoJo, if you have one?
Joylene.
Okay.
I mean, my favorite villain is, of course, Handman. What's his Yoshikage Kira.
You got to give it to the author for coming up with weird villains.
Kira, aka David Bowie.
Yeah. I love the music motif that he uses for each of them.
You can tell what time period he was in during each part by like what music things are like named after.
For sure. Like in Arc 2, he had AC/DC, Wham, and Cars, right?
Yeah, which makes sense. He was in the 80s.
Right, and that is the most, I suppose, overt of the villains that I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah. But moving on from there, moving on from anime, there's something that I want to touch upon. You mentioned getting into tabletop. Let's talk about that.
Okay. So I think I mentioned earlier, I went from that. Eventually, I got away from like RP forums and stuff. That was around the time. Excuse me. That was around the time I ended up finding like a local like game and card shop, and there I ended up getting into D&D. So I'll first say I was playing Yu-Gi-Oh at the time. So I played Yu-Gi-Oh when I was younger, and then one of my friends in high school got me back into it, and then showed me this card shop. And I had been playing in tournaments and stuff, and then one of the guys I played with said, "Hey, you want to play D&D with us? Like we're having a campaign tonight. We're having it at the store because we can't do it at our house." So I vividly remember my very first D&D game. And is really interesting because I was introduced to D&D through an evil party. The party I was playing with was basically all evil, barring my character. I didn't know I was following a trope when I did this, but I played an elf ranger. I didn't realize that was a trope, that like a bunch of people do that. I was just like, I want to fire bows. Bows are cool. who's good with bows? Elves? I'll play elves. Oh man, I could either be a fighter or I could be a ranger. I like animals, so I'm gonna have a ranger.
Okay. What rule system was this?
This was 3.5, I think.
3.5. Oh man.
I vividly remember that game because we're in this kobold fortress, this like old underground dungeon fortress thing. These kobolds had taken over, and we had been. I was playing a mercenary, and so we had all been hired to take out the kobolds, and scatter their cult and kill them all. So we were in there, and we party split. Because I didn't want to have to deal with the wizard going around, like the evil wizard going around killing like kobold babies. I was just like, I'm a true neutral character and I don't want to deal with this.
Right.
I don't see anything. Bye. So I leave and I get followed by our like halfling rogue character, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so said rogue character and I both had really good sneak. And we sneak ahead all the way to what was described to us as like this underground cathedral that had been, repurposed by the kobolds into a shrine to their god. And the boss character, the leader of their kobolds, was giving this big sermon. And normally there were like 20 kobolds there, and it would be bad for us to charge in. But nobody spotted us. So I just went, I don't really care about this character. I mean, I've just started playing them. You know what? I turned the other guy, Calvin, and I'm like, Calvin, let's just kill him.
Oh,
and they're just like, okay, that sounds good. So we sneak attack the much higher level, like I think like 3 levels above us, Kobold Priest, and we sneak attack. We both crit and we both roll max damage or close to max damage. And the Kobold Priest explodes. We hit him so hard. Then you can imagine our 2 characters mosey out in the stunned silence of those kobolds. And then I roll an intimidation check and I crit again.
Oh my god.
And I cause the entire cult to scatter. And I just kind of turned to everyone else. I'm like, all right, good game, guys. I think my job is done here.
And that's how you completed the campaign.
Well, that session. But I was hooked after that.
Okay. Well, that's the thing about D&D though. You can't. God, you can go for like 8 hours if you're not careful. I remember once, I played a rogue character. This was back when in freshman year. I played a rogue character, and me and my friends, we went to a tavern in the central city that I can't really remember the name of, and we were looking for a contact who said to meet us there, and we were trying to figure out who it was, and all our spot checks to look for the guy was failing. And eventually, just because the DM wanted to keep things dynamic, he said that a random fight broke out, and the paladin of our group decides to try and go break it up. But he failed on his diplomacy check and got a fire going. And then pretty soon, the entirety of the tavern was on fire. So that was fun. And for some reason, because our GM is, the mark of a good GM is when they're sadistic. So our sadistic GM essentially said that we were trapped there and we could not find a way out. And most of the alcohol kept the fire going. So in the last ditch effort, I said, all right, you know what? I'm going to try and persuade the fire. And the GM looks at me like, what? I'm like, yeah, I'm going to try and persuade the fire. And we went back and forth. And I'm like, we've got nothing else. We're going to die here. It's going to be the end of the campaign. So what do I have to lose? So I rolled a persuasion check and I crit a natural 20. And I persuade. It turns out the fire, he had to modify, and the fire ended up being an elemental, and I convinced the elemental to be a buddy of sorts, to be my companion.
See, that reminds me of a D20 Modern game I ran, because I run a bunch of different games. I ended up throwing my D20 Modern party into like an apocalyptic future, and they ran into this experiment that was a fucking plesiosaur, right?
Okay.
And I'm like, all right, so you're trapped on. So they're near DC on like one of the big rivers. The plesiosaur is circling them and is about to take out their small boat. And the ranger is just like, man, I've taken like all of these ranks of like, animal companionship or whatever the skill was called. It's
Right.
like, I'm going to roll to tame the plesiosaur.
Did he please tell me he crit?
And he crit. And so
Yes.
you can imagine they're laughing. I'm just silent going, oh my God, he just tamed a plesiosaur. Oh my God, you just.
Okay.
So
hang on a second. We gotta unpack this here. So for the listeners that don't know, a plesiosaur is essentially like a reptilian Lapras.
It's Nessie.
Yeah, it's
Loch Ness
Nessie.
Monster.
Yeah, and those things, if you've seen their skeletons, are huge. And this ranger has essentially tamed a plesiosaur. That is amazing. Holy crap.
So he named it Bessie. And and they latched ropes from the boat onto Bessie, and Bessie got them all the way to their destination without anything else messing with them. Oh, it was so sad because like over like the 3 sessions they were in the future, this ranger like bonded with Nessie and became friends with Bessie, and like by the end of it, like he had to let Bessie go because he couldn't take her with him into the past, and it's just like this sad like dinosaur bleeding as it like sails off into the distance.
Oh, goodbye, Bessie. Bessie shall be always remembered. That actually makes me wonder. Have you ever seen Critical Role?
Yeah, I don't watch it all that much, but I've heard about it and I've heard some of it. I like it. My girlfriend is a big fan of the Adventure Zone, which is another like D&D kind of podcast.
Yeah, I've heard of them.
Honestly, I've been kind of tempted to do something similar myself, but then I'm like, I don't want to GM again. I've done my time. I GM'd a Exalted campaign for like almost 5 years. So
wow,
like I don't want to GM at least for the next couple more years, even though it's been like 4 years since I GM'd my Exalted campaign. I'm still kind of burned out.
I mean, I can imagine because there's always a lot to impact in an Exalted campaign. Not only that, but it's hard work to DM all around and to do it straight. How often did you guys get together?
Once a week.
Once a week. So once a week for 5 years. Granted, maybe there might have been some holiday breaks in between, but still to keep that going. Holy crap! Wow, that's a long time.
I had a lot to work with, and my party kept making very bad decisions. Very, very bad decisions.
Care to tell a story about one of their bad decisions?
All right. So I had a large party. I had a party of about 7 people. 2 of these people. All right. So how do I just? These are the bad players, but they're part of our friend group, and they're part of this RP group that I had been with for a while. And these 2 players, and we were doing this online via Skype and Roll20. So these 2 people, Blundy and Ajax. So these 2 people make terrible decisions, and sometimes they like consciously say, "This is a bad decision. It might get my character killed, but I'm just going to go ahead and do it anyway." So we were inside of this manse that had, which is basically like a haven from Vampire the Masquerade or something, or it's basically a magical fortress or place that you draw power from, and you can use it as a house. And we had gone to this ancient manse, and it was this bit run by like this like magical AI kind of thing, and they were trying to survive all the horrible things that were happening to them. And the reason it was trying to kill them was because it was tainted by Oblivion, which is basically this force of like death and destruction. And in Oblivion, are these basically like elder god, like undead deities called the Neverborn, and they're bad news, like one of the most powerful things in the setting. So Ajax decides, I'm really fucking sick of this place. I'm sick of like trying to deal with this. I'm going to explode the place. And he had been working on this kind of bomb that like connected a place to oblivion to destroy it. He's just like, I'm just gonna set this off in the middle of the manse because I can't figure out a way to destroy this AI, and I don't find anything useful here, so I'm just gonna destroy this place. So he sets off the bomb, and it like the whole place starts like disintegrating and being like pulled into a black hole. And so long as like the device that the bomb unfolded into is active, that keeps happening. So he fails his roles to get away and ends up being stuck. And the rest of the party tried to save him, except they fail. And they keep failing their roles. Eventually, our mage, our Twilight, is just like, all right, my character doesn't like your character anyway, so I point at the bomb and I like fire off a spell at it, and I destroy the device, and Ajax's character gets sucked up into oblivion. So essentially, I'm like, all right, so Ajax, you end up at like the Maw of Oblivion. You're in the underworld, in the labyrinth. You're facing the Neverborn. Like you're slowly being driven mad by their whispers in your mind. What do you do? And he's like, all right, so that's what's all around me. I'm like, yeah. All right, so I'm gonna use this other device I have, and I'm gonna fly up onto one of the Neverborn because they're floating around in these basically world coffin things. I'm like, are you sure you want to do that? It's like, yeah, I do. It'll be great. And I'm like, yeah, I'm like, okay. And at this point, I'm just kind of at a loss because I'm just like, why do you keep doing this? I don't have anything written for if someone flies up into the mouth of a Neverborn. Like, oh God, what do I do? So I'm like, all right, you're there. Roll not to die, and he critically succeeds on every single roll he makes, and somehow makes that alive, which kind of categorizes like almost everything that happened to him. Like he would cause some kind of horrible issue for the party or the rest of the world, get sucked up into it, and then somehow miraculously survive.
That's definitely a trend I've seen before in other stories. They always do something crazy and then somehow are able to walk away, although the other members of the parties are not so lucky. They're always taking collateral damage.
Speaking of luck, I've run into something like that before in this same Exalted campaign.
Okay.
If you're willing to listen to like one more story.
Go ahead.
Okay, so there is this and Exalted Heaven is kind of a physical place. There's like almost a Chinese heavenly bureaucracy inspired area called Yushan. And Yushan has the Heaven and Earth Invitational. Imagine like the tournament from Dragon Ball. And you'll get an idea of what I'm talking about. So it's this big tournament with all these big name people fighting in it. And our one warrior is like, all right, I want to take part in this, and managed to get one of the other party members to call in a bunch of favors so that they would get an invitation to it. And so this player has some of the most insane luck I have ever encountered. They don't ever roll bad, and we're using like an online dice roller. And so for some reason, the RNG loves them.
Okay.
They fight their way through the tournament, past people they should not have beaten at all, like people who clearly outclassed them, all the way to the end. And there had been this NPC called Enkidu, and Enkidu was this very ancient lunar, very powerful, very, very hard to ever beat. There's no way they were going to beat. And they start fighting. And it's in this big circular, flat white granite or stone arena. So the boss is like, all right, so I've watched you fight people for a while now, and you're pretty good. You're very solidly earth based style. But I want to mix things up a bit. So they jump to the far end of the ring, use their great strength, stick their hands into the stone, and lift up the entire arena, other than what they're standing on.
Uh-oh.
And that was the exact response of the players. Oh. And they said, all right, we'll see how well you do up in the air. And they toss it. And this is like when Exalted gets like super high powered, like in higher levels, like high powered anime fights.
Yeah.
He tosses it up like half a mile up in the air, and it's just like, all right, jumps after it. All right, we're gonna have a fight. So we now have a time limit for our fight. You have to beat me before we hit the ground, or else you're going to die. So I knew there was like no way this player could win. I'm like, I just gave them an impossible situation. They don't have any like aerial things they can really do. The whole arena like breaks apart during the first attack by the NPC, and it ends up being like the fight between Cloud and Sephiroth in Final Fantasy Advent Children, where they're like jumping over like falling debris to attack each other. And I know, I've seen this character sheet, so I know this character sheet. My NPC's pool is twice as large as his. And in this system, we roll d10s, and if you get a 7 or above, it's a success. And if you get a 10, it's 2 successes. And then you compare successes. And they were throwing like 15 d10s. I was throwing like 40. Except I suddenly started rolling shit. I couldn't hit them.
Uh-oh.
No matter what I did, no matter like I would roll like multiple times being like, oh God, I can't hit them. I was getting like 1 or 2 successes. I was going like, oh God, what? And they kept hitting me over and over again. And so in the end, I kept missing and missing and missing to the point where it got kind of ridiculous. And where, I took them down to a low HP when I did hit them, but I couldn't finish it. Eventually, however, they got my NPC down to like 1 or 2 health, grappled him because they were nearing the ground, and they knew that this character had an ability to basically soak a bunch of damage. And they went, all right, I've won, so you're my ride now. They grapple him, put his arms behind his back, and then stand on his back and basically surfboard the NPC down to the ground. And at that point, I just went, all right, I'll give it to him. And the NPC just went, well, I guess this is my life now, and just let them surfboard him all the way to the ground.
Oh man, I bet the people in the party were just like raising their fists up in the air and just whooping and hollering at the end of all that.
They just absolutely lost their shit over this.
That's high stakes. That is absolutely high stakes. Wow. Jesus. I was really quiet because I got so into it. Okay. All right. Hang on. Let's come back to the world, Mikey.
However, the issue with that is eventually it gets kind of so high powered that like I couldn't really throw too many challenges at them that they couldn't solidly beat. So that campaign ended up going into hiatus and then just kind of stopped.
Yeah, I can understand that. And that's kind of like stat creep. Is that the correct terminology? Where everything is so high powered that it becomes impossible to present the adequate challenges required to make the adventure an actual adventure or something like that?
Yeah, definitely. That's something to avoid as a GM, because they were like Essence 5 or 6, but they hit like they were Essence 10, which is like the power stat Essence goes from 1 to 10.
Right.
And they were like solidly in the middle by the end of the campaign, but they were so all of them min-maxed for certain things that it made it very, very difficult to, give them a challenge in their own playing field.
Mm. I think that's a critique of, I don't want to say newer players, but I guess the less experienced ones, is that they tend to min-max a lot. It's just not balanced nor fun. The more experienced players, if they're not douchebags, they'll go ahead and create something that's all around rather than something that's min-max. I don't know. That's how I feel anyway.
Yeah. I agree.
Moving right along then. Going from tabletop stuff, we'll get into, I suppose, the overarching theme of this podcast, which is Elder Scrolls roleplay. So tell me how you found Elder Scrolls Online, and then tell me how you got into roleplay aspect of it.
Okay. So around the time that I was getting into ESO, the tabletop games I ran and I played were winding down. The RP forums I was on were also winding down, and I was looking for something to do. I didn't want to go back to WoW because I was really bored with it. And at the time, I was playing a lot of Skyrim. I played a lot of Skyrim, I kind of I played the game and I completely cleared it with several characters. Eventually, I just kind of started playing with mods, and I started role playing, I guess, as the character I was playing as. Just kind of going through, what would this type of character do if they were in Skyrim. I'd set up a whole house for them. I especially love the housing mods, which is why I'm such a fan of housing ESO. I'd set up a whole kind of story arcs for them. And so I was looking around for, just stuff involving Elder Scrolls. I was kind of bored, and I saw an ad for Elder Scrolls Online. And I had no idea what that was, so I went looking. And this is around the second beta testing phase. And I was like, oh, this sounds pretty cool. I could basically play Skyrim with friends. So I would like to do something like that. And, I've been enjoying RP, so I might as well look to see if other people are RPing. Because I didn't know that people RP'd in MMOs all that much. Because I never did anything like that in WoW. So I just went looking. And I got a beta key. I started looking around at, different RP groups until I found one called the Descendants of Latticel. They were kind of a Daedra Hunter group, Daedra Monster Hunter adventuring group, centered around the mercenary leader Valeria Latticel, and really they just kind of drew me into playing ESO with them, and we did lots of role playing there. I was very new to that format of role playing. Before I was very used to writing a couple paragraphs or something to describe whatever scene I was in, and then I had to kind of pare down what I was writing, to fit the character limit we used to have, which used to be much smaller than the one we have now, and mainly just I came for the role play, and I ended up liking the game as well. Of course, the ESO of launch is way different from the ESO now. It's so much of a better game now than it was before. But I wasn't too bothered with all the issues we had there. I was mostly in it, to get stuff that would make my character look cool and do stuff with kind of Daedra hunting stuff that seemed pretty cool for me with all the people I was around with.
So there's a lot to unpack there. So let's scroll it back just a little bit. You said you played Elder Scrolls Skyrim. What other Elder Scrolls games have you played?
So Skyrim was actually okay. No, Oblivion was the first one I played. I played that in college with my friend on his Xbox, and that was kind of my first introduction to the Elder Scrolls setting. I didn't play Morrowind until after I played Skyrim the first couple times. So I've played Morrowind, Oblivion, Skyrim, and I've at least seen kind of a let's play of Daggerfall. So just so I could get the story of what was going on there. Other than that, I think that's about it.
And were you able to figure out the whole the overarching story to the Elder Scrolls game, what the lore was about and everything? Because when I first started playing, it took me a long to figure out just what the hell the monomyth consisted of.
Honestly, a lot of that to get to that point just consists of a lot of reading. They don't really get into it in a very readable manner in Morrowind, because a lot of and people are going to get angry at me for saying this, but I'm not a fan of Kirkbride. A lot of the way he presents setting stuff is incredibly convoluted and very, very difficult to understand. Not in a, oh, you need a high IQ to understand this, but it's like deliberately obfuscating things, which I understand that obfuscation is a literary device, but I find that when you have a setting where almost all of your lore is either through dialogue or books that you read, and a lot of the ones that makes things make sense are through books. When you make things super obfuscated and hard to understand, it kind of lessens the impact of your lore. But kind of to answer your question, I got into the lore and I started liking it. So then I found like USP Wiki, USEP Wiki, whatever it's called, unofficial,
UESP.
That thing. Yes, I can't spell. I found that wiki. And I just started reading. I just went from page to page to page, reading about all the different things I could, and eventually I just sort of I absorb things I read very easily and recall them very easily. So that was not a problem for me.
Okay. What is your favorite piece of lore, if you have one, or what bit of the lore sticks out to you most? Or no, here's a more appropriate question. What is your favorite topic of the lore?
Aliens.
Okay, I should have seen that coming.
I roleplay things that interest me. I really like the alien lore. It's weird. I don't like Dwemer lore, but I like alien lore. Both of them are lost, and I also like Snow Elf lore. But all three of them are lost civilizations of elves. But I like the more kind of high fantasy feel of the aliens and the kind of like the decaying, fallen, high fantasy elder elf empire thing they have kind of going on.
I can understand that. And that's also a running trend of the Elder Scrolls landscape when I think about it, that there's this concept of entropy where things continuously break down. So the alien civilization was pretty advanced before they got rocked by civil wars and then Nalessia. Same thing with the Snow Elf Empire. They were pretty advanced before they pissed off Ysgramor, and then the Dwemer as well. Now we have a breakdown in Elder Scrolls Online anyway. We have a breakdown between, or we have the fall of essentially Cyrodiil, and now you have three factions warring over it, and now that's being called into questions with the intervention of the different Daedric princes. Everything's always in the state of decay.
That is a really big theme of Elder Scrolls, is that the world is a machine that is slowly breaking down. The pillars that support the world, the towers are slowly being taken down with each game. The forces of the Daedric princes are eating away at small parts of the world. The time of elder magic and like strong magical abilities is slowly fading. The aliens had elder magic. So did the Snow Elves. The Dwemer figured out how the inner workings of the world worked. Now they're gone, and so things are slowly but surely getting more like fading. It's a theme that started with Tolkien. Things were bright in the past and now they're fading. And it's a theme that is continued to play out in the Elder Scrolls.
I don't know. Was it really started with Tolkien?
Yes.
Huh.
As a general fantasy trope, that definitely started with Tolkien.
Can you give me an example of entropy in the Legendarium?
So you start out with this kind of utopian, what was it, the era of the two trees or whatever, in
the Silmarillion.
In the Silmarillion, you start out with this kind of time of plenty. Everything is all right. then corruption seeps in from Morgoth, slowly causes things to decay. The world is sundered in the giant war between the gods, and the world is kind of put back together, but it is less than it was. And this is a theme that keeps repeating in that particular world all the way up until the time of Lord of the Rings, where the elves are leaving the world because the world is fading from what it used to be under them. It's no longer their time. It's now the time of men. And they need to go back to their, whatever their land is called, which is Valinor, which is, basically the heaven. Yeah, that's a theme that kind of came out during that time of the world. There's a lot of different literature at that time where it's like things are fading, things are less than they were. It's almost like this golden age syndrome,
I can see where the argument is being made for that, but I'd humbly disagree with it. The reason being is that there is always a waxing and waning of eras in Tolkien's universe anyway. And the reason I say that is because Morgoth, very beginning, well, even before he was Morgoth, even from the very beginning, he was always a maker and causing destruction wherever he goes. So I would argue that there was never really a sense of utopia to begin with. There was always trouble no matter what happened. It's just there were times that there was peace, and that there are times that there was no peace to begin with.
I guess my point really, so I'll agree with you, right? There wasn't so much a utopia as is the world used to be something greater. It's still here, but now it is slightly less than it used to be.
Okay.
I guess that is the point I'm trying to make for both series.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with that right there, because I think in Return of the King, right, when the hobbits return to the Shire, they find that industry has taken over, right, and that is portrayed as a state of decay, and that in and of itself is a microcosm of the greater landscape, in that this is the time of men, and that sense of something greater is ending because of industry coming in, which harkens back to Tolkien's personal views of industry, which he always hated because he loved nature. But that's besides the point.
Also, I think if I remember my Silmarillion right, it's been like years. It's been over a decade since I read it, but there was like a continent that like flooded or something, and now that's gone. So it's sort of this like, yeah, we survived these tragedies and these cataclysms, but the world is lesser because of it.
Right. You're talking about Numenor, which was the
Numenor, and there's this other continent or something. It had a bunch of like elves on it. I don't remember, but I guess my point is that in the Elder Scrolls, there's always been this kind of this sense that things are fading. Though the world specifically is a machine that's slowly but surely breaking down.
Right, and I don't know. I don't like that about the Elder Scrolls. The Elder Scrolls universe, because it's not. It's a false pretense, I would say, that it makes itself out to be a parallel of today's world, and that things are always in the state of decay, which I don't think it is. I don't know how to quite put it into words. Whatever, I'll leave that subject. I need to think about that subject a little bit more. But yeah, anyway, moving right along then. So you started Elder Scrolls roleplay. You started with Descendants of Ladisil. Was that with your first RP character that you made in Elder Scrolls Online?
Yes, that was with Moriel. I've been playing her since beta.
Oh, wow. So what was her... I know you reworked her... You said that you reworked her story a few times. So what was her original story back then, if I may ask?
So this actually arcs back to me playing Skyrim, because originally Moriel is a Skyrim character that I played in that game. But I kind of adapted her to Elder Scrolls Online. So originally, the character was named Malariel, and she was the idea was that the character was originally an alien that had made this deal with the Daedric princes to keep living. And she essentially sent her line out of Cyrodiil so that they survived, and kept using this. I forgot, it was either an artifact or this like ritual that she would do to basically body hop to a new body every time the old one was going to give out. And so I was playing her as this character who had been alive for a long time, that had and this is in Skyrim, not in ESO, that had been alive for a long time, that had, I think, possibly been sealed away and then come back around the time of Skyrim, and was kind of playing with this lost traveler in a strange land trope. But that was kind of a little bit too crazy for ESO when I started playing out. So I'm like, nah, I'm not going to do that. So I made Moriel into a Bosmer. And I was made a Bosmer whose clan was originally Ayleids who had fled from Cyrodiil, shacked up with this, remote wood elf tribe, eventually intermarried with them. And this kind of remote clan kind of kept to themselves until eventually they were destroyed by Imperials, invading Imperials. And I had her as a character who had been around for a while. She had, had magic, had used, alteration or something to keep herself looking young, but that she was a character who had kind of lost all of her family and was originally kind of on this overarching quest to kind of rediscover, who her people were, where they came from, what they did, and who she was because of that. As an added thing, I first presented it to everyone is that she, as a child, basically touched this Ayleid memory crystal, and that's something that's brought up in a quest in ESO. Is that it's a magical crystal the Ayleids use to basically store personalities and memories in.
Kind of reminds me of a holocron from Star Wars.
It very much acts like a holocron.
Okay.
Except when you touch it, those memories get shot into your brain. And so I'm like, so what would happen if a small child who was like this, she was this apprentice of this member of the Mages Guild back when they're first being founded, touched one of those? Well, I was like, so she's being basically possessed by these memories. She touched up the memories, have shot into her head, and now she is kind of like having these episodes. From the very beginning, the whole kind of Moriel-Malariel split between the character has always been that she's a character with what's essentially split personalities based on what she's the magical artifact that she's been affected by. However, it didn't first manifest itself as like a solid other personality. So in her background, it started up as like these weird dreams, and then like these like blackout episodes. And she didn't know what she had touched because she was a small child. So she started to believe that, Malariel made these deals with the Daedric princes, obviously to like try to like live again if she died. Obviously, this is what happened. I must be the reincarnation of Malariel, and my past self is trying to take me over. Belief of hers led to a lot of bad things happening to her, and a lot of misconceptions on like what was actually going on with her, when in reality she wasn't the...
Kind of interesting from that aspect, because when I think about it, what is a person but the sum of their... No, sorry. What is their identity but a sum of a person's memories, right? We define ourselves based on our collective experiences. You say if you go in for a job interview, right, you immediately have what you've done in the past in order to prove yourself to be worthy of the occupation. So for this, I can imagine for a small child suddenly being bombarded with these memories, essentially, I don't know, it does get it. I suppose it lends itself to, yes, the concept of split personality disorder, in that her identity, while it was still developing, is immensely fractured.
Yeah. So and so I know the way I presented this was a little bit haphazard, and presenting this to you, I mean, but I want to go out and say like the way I role played this is this was an ongoing kind of sub arc character arc for Moriel over years and years and years, ever since beta. And every once in a while it would come up again. I was very much aware when I made this character of how crazy all the things I've told you sound. And so I always would try to present this as in piecemeal parts, right? So okay, so Morio has this connection to the aliens. She's having these weird dreams. Slowly but surely, a second what seems to be someone possessing her shows up. They start talking about themselves as if they're some kind of sorcerer queen of the aliens. And then it slowly builds up as more and more people become invested with the character, up until, eventually when I was with House Ravnor, someone basically, delved into her mind and found out, this isn't like someone possessing her. She has like two separate sets of memories, and these memories are like a foundation of a personality, and which is something I was trying to explore. Yeah, something I was trying to explore was essentially what makes up our personality. Is it the memories? Are if you get someone else's memories, what do you get with that? Do you get the knowledge? Do you get what they feel, what they thought when these memories, were taking place?
Sure, you're trying to explore how that leaves an imprint on a person, I would imagine.
Yeah, and so the conclusion I came to is, as these blocked away memories like would flood through every once in a while, she would act like Malariel, think she was Malariel, and it would, because she was so young when she got her mind fractured by this, it almost did, form its sort of, other self inside of her. And it was like a real bad ongoing issue for, a while for her, until probably about 6 months ago. I think everything finally finished. I was very, very slow over the last like 4 years of like letting that out every once in a while, so that became a kind of ongoing storyline.
How did it feel to finally get some closure on that story?
Oh, good. Very much a relief, because it came down to, you can't just seal away this other part of you. You need to like accept it, and kind of the two parts are slowly merging, like working in tandem with each other. Malariel is no longer, shows up and hurts other people kind of thing.
That's kind of like the beat for beat recovery of someone with split personality disorder, if I think about it.
Yeah, I did. I did a lot of research on split personality disorders, and how to properly represent that without representing it in a bad way.
Right. It reminds me of that old movie Sybil. I don't know if people have ever seen that movie, but yeah, that's what it reminds me of. My question then is exactly, is that the definitive history that she has now, or has that changed at all?
I mean, it's changed a little bit. When I first made the character, I was like, oh yeah, so I'm just going to say that she's from like northern Valenwood. She's from like Reaper's March. And I pointed to the area, and this is before any of the objectives or the markers on the maps ever came out. So we just had blank maps. And I was like, yeah, she's from this area. And I pointed to her around where the Vile Manse was. And so I went to the Vile Manse eventually and did that quest line and found out, oh God, there is not only a destroyed Bosmeri village that was destroyed by Imperials, but there's also, like this sunken alien city at the bottom of, this cavern. It's like, wow, this really, fits, the history of the character. And so I took that and I related it back to what I had been saying before, and being like, yeah, so the clan of aliens she was from, came to this area. That particular city kind of sunk into the ground. They fled and married with the Wood Elves, eventually, until the the village was burned down when she was born, and then she left, and then the remnants of that town ended up forming the Bosmeri village that was burned down as part of the Violmance quest line.
So, just to make sure that I've understood everything about your character so far, at least I think I did up until this point. She is from a Bosmeri clan that intermarried with an fleeing group of aliens that which they eventually got phased out, and now it's Bosmeri with alien blood. Is that it?
Yeah, and I kind of explained a lot of that by there's some lore books you run into in AD that explain that the Ayleid survivors, some of the Ayleid survivors fled into Valen Wood and they married the Wood Elves, but that those who fled to Valen Wood and ended up marrying Wood Elves, the Ayleids there just phased out and they all just became Bosmer. Some of them maybe had like weird colorings, which I explained for her, like stark white hair and her very dark skin. But her whole history is that the night she was born, her clan was attacked by Imperials, Colovians specifically, from across the Strid River. So they were all attacked. Her father fled, but her mother and most of the other people she knew died. They fled to Arinthia, where her dad worked as a mercenary and then later a member of the Fighters Guild. He was often away a lot, so she ended up growing up in the streets of Arinthia, got taken in as an apprentice to a member of the Mages Guild, worked as his apprentice, which is how I kind of explain how she got into an Ayleid ruin, is that he took her along to carry his things and stuff like that. Basically taught the way of the sword by her shitty dad, taught some magic, which she excels in alteration, by the mage. Eventually, when she was old enough, she left, went off kind of mercenarying and adventuring in Cyrodiil, worked as someone who delved into ruins for people for riches and gold and stuff, worked as a bodyguard, worked as a whole bunch of different things.
How old is she?
So I did not start out making her this age, but I kind of had a lot to tell with this character, and I wanted to have a character who had seen the world and so was kind of retired from adventuring, is doing a different thing now. So she is almost 400.
Jesus.
She's like 390 something. She does this because Elder Scrolls has a long history of mages who have figured out a way to extend their life.
Sure.
She uses alteration and these painful alteration rituals once a year to keep herself young, which is kind of how I hand wave that away. But after this kind of life adventuring, she settled down for a while in like Malabal Tor with her husband and her family. Worked as a monster hunter and stuff in there until she ended up angering a clan of Bosmeri vampires who wiped out her clan, who wiped out the remainder of her family. And it's coming out of that and her kind of searching for a purpose is where I started in ESO.
Okay, and you went from the Scales, or you started at the Scales, and then where did you go from there?
Yeah, so we start with Descendants of Latticel, and their leader Valeria had picked up Moriel after the two of them had served as scouts for the Dominion army, because at the time Moriel was kind of just, I'm going to throw away my life because I have nothing to live for anymore. So Valeria picked her up, gave her a purpose, and she worked as a hunter and a spy for Valeria, until the player Valeria got sick of ESO and decided that they're going to kill their character off and leave the game. So we had this huge event where we're going to have an IC company meeting. We go to check on Valeria because she's late, and we find her dead body. And it becomes this huge whodunit, who in this room killed her. Two people were leaving the game, so the leader and this other person, had their character have killed Valeria from behind. And following that, I did not agree with the leadership that took over. I didn't think that they were doing a good job. So I and some other people left and formed our own group. We formed, and I know some people listening may not like this group, but we formed the Kin of the Shadow Phoenix. The symbol of the Sense of Latticel was a phoenix, an eagle. And so my character kind of got drug into a life of crime by her Khajiit friends. And they formed the Kin. The Kin was centered. This was before the walls fell down between the different factions. So we were only in AD at the time. The Kin were these. They're the mafia, basically. It's what we became. We started out as this business group centered around Thizrini Arena, running an arena, doing business stuff, having mercenaries. Ended up all becoming criminals. I stuck around with them for about a year and a half, until that guild kind of fell to inactivity. Around the same time, it fell to inactivity. I started RPing in EP, which is where I brought up Varesi. And that's how I got involved in the whole Tales of the Second Era thing. After all of that, and I got kind of sick of things going on in the Kin, I ended up joining the guy playing Gideon Ravnor, and that started out as a small RP group that we all swore we'd never actually make a guild out of, but now it's become,
shit happens, and that sort of happened.
we never want, in the beginning, Gideon was like, we're not going to have a group more than 10 people. We're not going to have a guild. I don't want a guild. I don't want the responsibility. Now we've got 50 people in our guild, and almost all of them are active. So
I'm just laughing at the situation. It's I find it a little funny.
I'm surprised we last this long. I'm actually very glad. It's a good group of people.
How long has House Ravnor been around?
How long has ESO been around? 4 years now, I think.
Yep. It officially came out in 2014.
About 3 years, I think. About 3 years.
And your character goes by the occupation champion of House Ravnor.
She's had a lot of different occupations. Originally, she was his lab assistant and bodyguard. Later, she was a major domo. She led the businesses, but she hates that job. And I hated the job. So I was just like, give me something else to do. He's like, well, I'll make you my champion. Originally, that just meant I was his bodyguard. As the guild grew and we basically formed different divisions, Moriel ended up in charge of the military. So by being house champion, she is the leader over the entire military of House Ravnor.
Okay. And what's that responsibility like, being in charge of the military? Does this mean training of the new military-oriented recruits, coordinating logistics and supplies, that sort of thing, or?
All of the above. She's trained people. She has organized. So we have 3 different divisions in Ravnor, right? And these are kind of recent reorganizations. But currently we have 3 divisions. We have a military, we have kind of a scholars division, and then we have house staff / spies. I do the military. Gideon.
I'm sorry, you said the military, and what was the second one?
The second one is the one our guild leader Gideon runs, and that's scholars. So it's basically he's a member of the Mages Guild, and he has a bunch of students, and it's kind of like a mini Mages college. And then our third group is kind of house staff, but we also have some people who act as spies for the house, and they fall under that as well.
Military, scholars, and spies. That's the 3 branches of House Ravnor.
Yeah, well, spies is also not just spies, but businesses, staff. We actually have a lot more staff than we do spies.
So I take it then you'd run events for the...
Yeah, so I run events for the military. We have a muster either every 2 weeks or every month, depending on our schedule, where we gather troops together. We ICly train them in different things. I'm currently running a plot line involving a lot of the military in it, where they're investigating different disturbances around the Gold Coast. It's going to end up with some fights happening against these like undead forces. And I mainly leave a lot of the day-to-day stuff up to my two lieutenants. One of them is in charge. There are two groups in the military. One is basically like the home guard, and one of them is kind of like a special forces. And I leave a lot of the day-to-day training and event stuff up to them.
You mentioned the undead in the plot you were talking about. You also mentioned before the podcast started that a certain villain that some people know and love is also a part of that. So let's segue into that character if you're okay with that.
I'm okay with that.
All right, so let's talk about the one, the only Jurok Deathcaller. He was present in the Tales of the Second Era Skyrim. Rockthor recalled him fondly. He was a vampire. He is a vampire, excuse me. What is Mr. Deathcaller's story?
Well, first, I want to say that he did not start out as this beloved villain.
Well, you know what? Hang on. We're jumping the ship a little bit. Let's scroll it back just a little bit. Let's talk about how you became involved in Tales of.
Okay. So for those of you who don't know, who are listening, Tales of the Second Era is three event series. Tales of the Second Era, Morrowind, Skyrim, and Blackmarsh. Floyd, the human Floyd, was one of the people running all of these. And I became involved in Tales of the Second Era, not in Skyrim, but in Morrowind. I joined Morrowind right when that was starting up. And one of the characters I made when I started playing in Morrowind was an Ashlander. And the Ashlanders were the focus of the Morrowind plotline, where there is this war between the Dunmerry houses and the Ashlanders in mainland Morrowind. There's a lot of stuff that happened with my Ashlander. I was playing the Ashcan of this small tribe that had just moved into the area, did not know what was going on, and we kind of organically got drug into this plot line because we were RPing outside of Ebonheart, doing trading and stuff. We ended up like interrogating this Redoran Sentinel for information on what was going on. The wise woman enchanted him with magic so he would report back to us. And we were doing just Ashlander RP until said Sentinel got caught. And they found out that, you know, the wise woman had enchanted him. We got black bagged by Khaos Redoran and drug off to Fort Arand, where we were interrogated for information. And then part of our tribe was held hostage. And we were told that they were concerned about the rising forces of the Mimzalti, who are the NPC and PC Ashlander tribe, who are behind the whole Tales of the Second Era. And like they've been attacking, you know, the houses, and I need someone on the inside. So if you don't want the rest of your tribe be executed, you guys, you know, the players, you're gonna go and infiltrate the Mimzalti for me. And that's how we got involved. Ended up with, you know, my character, Asamashen Zinsubani, which is a long name.
I think you have to repeat it again for me. What was that?
So the first two are hyphened, Asamashen Zinsubani.
Okay. Asamashen Zinsubani.
Yes, Zinsubani, yes. So he ended up becoming one of the military leaders of this like Ashlander rebellion. They, you know, ended up sacking Kraganmore in this massive battle. We had like 100 people participating in that. He committed what's undoubtedly war crimes if anyone ever found out it was him that did it, because he led to the slaughter of that Argonian village in Stonefalls. He did a whole bunch of war crime-worthy things in the name of not having his tribe executed. Of course, they were executed anyway, but he didn't find out until afterwards. And it ended up with a lot of really cool RP. And I ended up basically becoming this, not really a boss character, but just this lieutenant Ashlander and helping Floyd run all these events. And so after all of that was over, you know, I had become friends with Floyd by then. And he said, yeah, you know, a couple months down the line, he's like, I'm running, Tales of the Second Era Skyrim. And, I see that on Engine, ESORP. I contact him. I say, Floyd, I see you're running Tales of the Second Era Skyrim, and none of my characters would participate in that because they're all Morrowind or AD. So can I make an NPC for this? And he's like, yeah, go ahead and make an NPC. And he's like, so all of our, he gave me a bunch of literature to read on like the Reachman tribe he made and the Worm Cult guys he brought. And I was like, yeah, so I'll just make this Reachman necromancer. I'll just make him a vampire. We'll see what we can do with that. So I make him, and we realize very shortly after I make him, that I've leveled him up to like 30, that, we don't have a lot of like big, bulky Reachmen. And my character is a big, bulky Reachman. I was using the Brett model, but rather than a Nord model. But you still, people remember him being a lot taller than he actually was. Originally, his original looks do not scream, Reachman warrior. He had the same haircut like Sheogorath has in ESO, and the long mustache and goatee, because he was a mustache twirling necromancer at first. So I put on the ancient the Drog. It's now called Draugr style, but it was only dropped from as special pieces from Dolmen's at the time. But basically the ancient Nord Draugr set, and I had a full set of that heavy armor, and I had, I think, the medium helm on that covered up most of his face but left like the goatee. And so I said, okay, I will go ahead and have my guy be this muscle. And, Floyd, you're looking for some kind of boss characters, people who will be kind of the iconic villains to draw people in. And so I said, so how about we make this guy an ancient vampire? And so I pitched the idea to him, and he thought it was really cool. That Drock is this ancient Reachman vampire that Kalar, his NPC.
Alice Salar, right.
Alice Salar, whatever his name is. Sorry, I don't mean to be like dismissive. I kept pronouncing it as Kalar instead of Salar. I'm sorry, Floyd. Please don't be mad at me.
He's not going to be mad. Go ahead.
Yeah, I know. So his character uses the Reachmen and the members of his cult to uncover this buried Nordic tomb. I think we used one of the crafting stations in the Rift that's like a Nordic tomb, so kind of hideaway. And we use that as the area, and they find his body, and his body's in torpor. His whole legend is that he fought against the Draenei and the Draenei, not Draenei. Why am I calling them Draenei? It's not World of Warcraft. Daireni.
Yeah.
Fought against the Daireni, and the Daireni sealed him away. So Salar, awakens him and binds him with necromancy, so that Drock has to follow his orders. And so that kind of is where things start with him. I think over the entirety of the plot, he went from kind of like this mid-boss character that's just kind of here to lead the Reachmen to this, he became the main villain of the entire plot.
That goes to show you that character progression kind of happened on both sides, not just for Team Good Guy, but for the folks that actually played the red shirts as well. And that's cool, in my opinion, because it means that the story itself became
dynamic.
Yes, exactly. It became dynamic, and that's really, really awesome. And he's still wandering around, right? What happened to him? Let's see. What happened to him after Skyrim ended? All right, so getting back into it, we should talk about what happened to Jurok as the plot progressed, and then we'll talk about what happened to him once Tales of the Second Era Skyrim ended.
Okay, so like I said, this character started out with the idea that he would be kind of a mini boss. He'd lead, because we started the plot line doing raids on people. Like I think Hammers of Atmore. They weren't called that now. They're I don't remember what they were called, but they were basically the companion guild. And one instance is like they were guarding a caravan as the caravan was going somewhere, and we attacked. And we started doing these small raids and events and necromantic events, giving people an idea that hey, something is going on, so you might want to get involved in it. But the first time Jurok came to the public consciousness was when he led an attack on the Withered Tree, back before the Withered Tree became the cesspool.
The Withered Tree.
Back when the Withered Tree was good, he led an attack on this community night. So they're having this IC community night, everyone's there. We didn't tell them that the reason that entire event was happening was because we're going to have Reachmen attack it. So a bunch of Reachmen and vampire, skeletons and stuff and zombies all run into the Withered Tree, and Jurok is at the head of them, and he's loudly proclaiming to everyone that Skyrim is theirs now, and they're gonna bury the Nords of the Rift in a tide of blood, bone, and stuff like that.
That's sure to get everyone's attention.
But what really got everyone's attention is he got in a fight with two people during this, and one of them shoved a greatsword right through his chest. And he kicks the guy away. He takes the greatsword and he pulls it out. Instead of turning into dust, these weird black tendrils come out of his wound and slowly pull it closed in the most very, very disgusting manner. Because part of the concept for the character is based off of the original form of liches from Scandinavian legends, but particularly Koche the Deathless, where he took out his heart, where in character in this barbaric ancient Reachman ritual, he removed a hag removed his heart, sealed his death in his heart, removed his heart, and placed his heart in a box, so that to kill him you must destroy his heart.
Kind of reminds me of Davy Jones.
Yeah. So I said, okay, so I can justify this by saying he's a boss character. He's not. I can't let him. I'm going to be fighting a whole bunch of people multiple times, and I need to let them feel like they're fighting him. But the idea of the character is that he is every bit the monster that is inside every vampire. Because at the time, a lot of vampire players were not open about what they were. Everyone was very civilized. No one was being open like a lot of people are now. And Jurok went, and I just went, I don't want to do that. Jurok does not pretend to be anything else but the horrible monster from your nightmares. So I need to, like any horror monster, I need to make him invincible for at least until you find what kills him.
Right. Now, and looking at it from a player perspective, that can be easily viewed as power playing if you're not careful. My question is how were you able to get that viewpoint across to say, yeah, this dude is a bad dude, killing him conventionally will not work?
It was with the explicitly stated promise that they would get to kill him at the end. And also, it's the way I presented it. I didn't present it as, haha, I am better than you. I presented it, because there's a different way to present it. If you power game and you say that you have, I have a guy who's immortal, he cannot be killed. And you present in a way that, haha, I'm better than you, I win. That's not how you should do it. You can win against Jurok without killing him, which happens several times in the plot line. The way I present it is like the way that Jason was presented, or some kind of or Freddy Krueger, some kind of monster from a horror movie is presented.
you can defeat him but never really kill him.
Yeah. So people would, they drove him away before. Like there was this Asgardr used this holy magic and it horrifically burned him, and they drove him off. He turned into mist and fled, and like that happened several times. Like they kept running and they kept going into this where it's like, all right, I cut into you and you keep going because you're like a vampire Shoggoth basically. But there are other ways that I can deny what you want. So like we had a part where we invaded Fallowstone Hall, and I figured out that usually there's only one way up, and you have to go up this kind of curving road up to the plateau they're on. But like the day before, I started jumping at the rocks around the cliff face, and I found a way up the cliff face. And I taught a group of other Red Shirts players to come with me. So during the Battle of Fallowstone Hall, while the big fight was going up against the Red Shirts on the hill, I climbed up the cliffside and got right to where like the graveyard was and attacked them from behind.
Surprise butt sex.
Yeah, basically. I show up
awesome.
there. I show up there. There are like 2 Reachmen with me and a Draugr Deathlord. I have a friend of mine was playing a Draugr Deathlord whose ability was he had unrelenting force.
Oh wow.
People were cool. Yeah, people were cool with that because they're like, all right, you're not a player. You're specifically something from Skyrim. You're like
Right.
a Draugr Deathlord.
Right.
And because he snagged the actual name for Draugr Deathlord. And so it kind of lended this. There's this credible threat, and even though we fought against them and we had that, we were still driven back. They still won. So it was this. You want to give the players a sense of victory, even in the face of something that they can't directly contend with.
That's a profound piece of advice that I'll take into consideration, or not take into consideration, but will totally follow.
Yeah, and in the end, he was defeated. We had an all weekend event for the finale, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and on Friday we invaded Gearman's Hall, and we broke up the big Red Shirt army into different groups. And my group went down into the catacombs, raised up an army of undead, and drove everyone, up to Gearman's Hall. And this is when Jirok went from the mid boss to the main boss, because there, I'm going to paint a picture for you. All right. So everyone you are the defenders of Skyrim. You are winning. You are beating back the undead and Reachman hordes until suddenly, from underneath you in a catacomb, come out an army of your dead, led by this big, giant vampiric Reachman in like ancient Nord armor, and they march up to the front and they push you back, and frantically your mages are trying to form a portal to get everyone out inside of Gearman's Hall, while the hordes of undead and Reachmen surround the hall itself in a semicircle. The defenders of Skyrim are in front of the doors, or in front of the hall, trying desperately to defend it. But one of them, Jirok, steps forward and he stops. He keeps them from going. And he walks forward in front of the rest of his forces, and he gives a speech. He says that, and before I say the speech, before this, we had done a ritual event where we basically raised what we thought was the ghost of a dragon, being basically an image of a dragon. Strangely enough, done in the same way as the final boss of Scalecaller Peak, but 2 years before that ever came out. And so you can imagine my character walks out, and he gives a speech about how they're weak, they'll never be able to defeat them, that something about how we are your sons of Skyrim, we are your sins. We are the sins of your forefathers made manifest. Come and face the things that your ancestors have done. And as he yells this, the ghost of the quote unquote ghost of the dragon rises up out of the ether and swoops down over the hall. And everyone panics.
I love it. I love
some
it.
people
That's great.
charge forward and slam their blades into him, and he laughs in their faces and kicks them away, throws their swords back at them, and the entire group, like all like 50 of them, are watching as like nothing seems to happen, and they all back away and flee. And that is what turns him into the main villain, because I was doing some RP afterwards where we had captured someone, and Floyd messages me, and I'm in voice chat with Floyd at this point, and he's like, yeah, man, I'm over there, as a different character, and everyone is talking about your character rather than anyone else. They're talking about, how do we kill him? How do we defeat him? And my character had been introduced to some other people. We tried to basically have them turn traitor on the rest of the Nords, but we failed. So they know who he is. And so like this information is like disseminating among the camp of the people who have fled to Iverstead. And, they're like, we need to find where his heart is. We need to find information on him. And it becomes this kind of last minute mystery that rises out of player action.
That's beautiful.
And this kind of, how do we defeat this unstoppable Reachman? And I end up having a delve into a different area where they find his heart and they destroy it right before the final battle. And in the final battle, it's this running fight across Iverstead, where Salar is trying to use the Reachman and his cabal as a distraction to get to High Hrothgar. Drock's trying to betray him while this is happening, because Drock hates Salar because Salar basically enslaved him. So knowing that this is probably not going to work, Drock leads his forces over the bridge from Garmus Hall to Iverstead, and they're fighting. He gets to fight with a bunch of people, turns to mist and darts across the lake, the river, and starts booking it towards the 7,000 steps. However, 20 player characters are following him, and it becomes this running melee battle and range battle across Iverstead as he desperately tries to like make his way to up the 7,000 steps so that he can get away. And at that point, it's turned from horror into this desperate battle, because the monster is no longer a monster; he's become a man.
Right. This is kind of like the last chance that they get. That's the feeling I get from you telling me this anyway. Jesus.
Yeah, it really just feels like I felt the desperation, because the character Drock is trying to escape while still being bound to follow Salar's orders. Because of Salar's orders, he either has to ascend the 7,000 steps with him or defeat everyone there. And so he's able to basically rules lawyer the magical bindings on him to flee up the 7,000 steps. And if he can kill or end up leading the adventurers to Salar, they can kill Salar and he'll be free. Except it doesn't work out that way.
Mm-hmm.
They chase him up the 7,000 steps. He's desperately, cutting people down and using drain. The only spell he knows is drain vitality spell, but he's able to cast on a whole bunch of people. He's like draining people's vitality. He's slicing at them, but his pace slows down, and he keeps slowing down because more and more people jump on him, and he's taking more and more wounds, like Boromir in the woods, but he keeps fighting. And it becomes apparent to the fighters that some of them are going to die if they keep doing this, because unless they chop him into pieces, he's going to keep fighting. So one of them goes, "That's enough. I'm going to finish this." And right there in front of everyone, reveals himself as a werewolf as he transforms into one.
Oh, what?
He transforms publicly into a werewolf,
Oh, boy.
which thus damning his character, because that caused a lot of issues for him later, because they tried to kill him like later on.
Do you remember who this was?
I forget his name. It was he's one of the companions.
Okay.
Guy with like long black hair, shirtless.
Thoroff, maybe.
Maybe, I don't know.
Okay.
But might have been Thoroff. But he transforms into this giant werewolf, grabs while the others have basically cut off the arm that was holding his axe, grabs Drock by the head with his massive clawed hand, takes a running leap at a nearby tree and slams Drock's head against it, and then starts going slam again, again, and again, just brutally slamming Drock's head against the tree until I say, that kills him. I say, you take his thing and you slam it until you crush his helmet inwards and you reduce his skull to pulp. And he drops the nearly headless corpse and he howls and they're all celebrating. And as this happens, Drock's corpse slowly turns into ash that then coats the area. So he dies. And so you're asking, how the heck is he still alive?
That was going to be my next question.
So during this entire thing, there are a bunch of necromancers who came to like Duroc. One of them was Salar's assistant, his second in command. And they got pretty close to each other. Duroc was so impressed by, who she was as a person that he swore that should he survive this, he would come and he would help her rescue her brother from this thing that she's trying to get him from. So I'm contacted. So Duroc dies and this ends. And I'm contacted after the battle by JPN, my friend, his character Urzuli, who is this Imperial necromancer. And she's like, so Urzuli showed up, was invisible while everyone else was fighting, and she collected a bunch of the ash from Duroc and left. I'm like, okay.
Oh.
I then get contacted 3 months later, and they say, so would you mind if I brought Duroc back to life? I'm like, how? And so they detailed to me this very long ritual involving multiple events where this cabal of 10 actual players get together and they revive Duroc using these reagents and these rituals they've collected. And one of them ends up kind of taking over the ritual and uses Duroc, the recently revived Duroc, against the companions, but doesn't bind his will like Salar did. So Duroc basically gets him into the situation where he's surrounded by the companions and then abandons him and leaves. He ends up not being able to fulfill his oath to Urzuli. They don't meet again after that. But for a long time, he spends some time in Craglorn. He spends some time in High Rock and the Reach until he comes back to the Ebonheart Pack. And he ends up in a previous guild I ran called the Foyada Tong. And that was a group that was basically how to describe it? Basically like vampire Illuminati. Basically imagine a secretive, magical, how do I say it? A cabal of Daedric mages and vampires and monsters trying to slowly corrupt and control Morrowind.
Reminds me of the Templars from Assassin's Creed.
Kind of, yeah. But a lot like the Illuminati is basically how I described it, is my lazy explanation. It was a really cool guild. The idea behind it all was just I loved it. However, that guild kind of failed. And so as part of the end of that thing, I was using Tel Galen as our HQ. And my character, Varesi, had been working on replicating a Propulon chamber, or whatever it's called, from Morrowind.
Okay.
So that she could link future bases together.
Right.
Except as she was using it to try to open a portal away so they could escape the vampire hunters that were hunting them down, something goes wrong. She gets stabbed. She can't complete the spell. It goes nuclear, explodes the entire tower, and teleports everyone there all across Tamriel. And what I mean by that is I had a list of different places in game, and I rolled. And I said, you end up here, you end up here. But for Jurok, I said, Jurok lands in the Reach.
Oh, he's right back home.
He lands in the Reach, and he's injured, he's dying because he's mortal now. After he's been revived, he's a vampire, but he can be killed. And I say, so he comes across a tribe of Reachmen, and he devours them all, and he turns them into vampires and becomes their chieftain. Because I intended to use them, I had been running with Artemis.
Another cool dude. Had him on the podcast. Can't say enough nice things about him.
He's an amazing GM, and he's the one that inspired this current plot I'm running. I'm trying desperately to get the kind of mastery that he does of running all these like disparate plot threads and then bringing them all together.
He's a mad genius when it comes to those. I still wonder how he does it, even after explained to me. It's crazy. It's crazy.
I mean, I've asked him, but I just can't wrap my head around some of it, you know?
Yeah. He's it definitely, how do I say it? It definitely what he definitely does is that he does spend a lot of time making sure that there are minute details for folks to pick up, and whatever they pick up and interpret, he adapts the storyline to what they do. At least that's what I understood from my chat with them anyway. With him anyway.
Yeah. So I have a plot line going on right now that uses Jurok's Reachman tribe, the Cruel Fang. And they are a tribe of monstrous, barbaric Reachmen, like vampiric Reachmen. They're all like, stage 4 vampirism, very much obviously monsters. And they've come to the Gold Coast where House Ravnor is. And they've come in what appears to be an offer of alliance with House Ravnor, of different vampire covens allying together and working together like we used to have with Conclave of Night. And while this has been going on, other weird stuff has been happening in the area, driven secretly by the Reachmen. Like there is I think I posted some rumors in ESRP of this group called the Order of the Red Cup. They're on the surface, they appear to be a charitable organization of Stendarr, but really they're a group run by like the grave singers and hags of the Reachmen, who have like taken over the minds of these monks, and they've turned it from a charitable organization that like gives out potions and alms and stuff to the poor, to people who like invite the poor and the homeless of the Gold Coast into their monasteries or into their chapels, and then vanish them and do horrible experiments on them all before like making them forget and putting them back out on the street. And with the end game of they're going to attempt to later do a ritual to cause a plague of blood fiends like in Riven's Fire. Of course, this is going to get stopped. And also stuff like they're stealing magical artifacts so they can do these rituals. The end goal of the rituals is basically to do what Art and I came up with, this whole like set of rituals that the Reachmen need to do, where they're basically walking the path Drock took earlier in his life to undergo this ritual where he took his heart out in order to be able to complete the same ritual again.
So essentially he's trying to become deathless once more.
Yes.
Right.
It's called The Rite of the Death Gift, ending with
This was covered in one of his plot lines, I believe.
Yeah. There's the Rite of the Death Gift, and there's the Ritual of the Swaying Flesh, where they take out the heart. And there's a whole bunch of different rituals that the Reachmen are doing around um, the Gold Coast. And it's we're kind of in the middle of the plot right now, so they don't know the Reachmen are doing it yet. But the house is kind of playing catch up, where they're trying
Potential
to.
spoilers.
I mean, it's going to be released in a month. It's going to be done by then. They'll know.
That's true.
I have an event tonight where they will be finding out one of the major clues, so it's not really a spoiler.
Okay. Yeah. Well, here the future me will be. Oh yeah, that's right. I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
No, it's fine. It's fine. But yeah, the plot is that they're going through the steps to make him deathless again, and to give him a huge amount of power, so that he can perform the ritual that will essentially activate all these alchemical concoctions and these beggars in Anvil and Kvatch, which will turn them all into blood fiends that they can then bring under their control and conquer the Gold Coast. However, of course, the good guys will attempt to stop them. I'm not going to post in the rumors thread, there's an army of blood fiends in the Gold Coast now. They'll likely be stopped.
Okay. Then where do you see, and this is where we might get into a bit of speculation, but what do you see happening to Jura once Team Good Guy wins?
So when you're editing this, you may want to just put in spoilers before this whole section. But spoilers, he's going to die. He will meet his final death.
Okay.
I
can only imagine what that will be like.
I have a house that I have made into a cavern that the Reachmen have set up their tribe in, and that will be his final battle location. And they'll fight him there, and they'll kill him.
If you need help for that, by the way, I'm just only a poke away as an extra red shirt or something.
Oh, I love red shirts. You are welcome to take part.
Sure. Just keep me on Discord. In fact, I'll add you as a friend and just be like, yo, can you red shirt on this day? And I'll be like, let me check my schedule. All right, let's do it.
Definitely. I am looking for red shirts, actually. I'll probably post something in RP Classifieds. I need, zombies, skeletons, cultists. Also, if people are willing to make an undead Reachman, we can talk about that. I would love more.
An undead Reachman as a named character, or
like a name. You can play a named Reachman vampire. Your character's going to die at the end of this plot line, but you can make a named character.
I just might sign up for that. I'll be like, yo, you have my sword.
Yeah, I mean, I have to preface it with you'll die, because some of the people who are playing their Crowfangs are like, man, I really like this character. And I'm just like, but I told you I was going to kill that character off. Yeah,
okay. So special service announcements to you lovely listeners. Moriel is looking for red shirts for an upcoming plot. You guys should totally get in contact with her.
You can do that by finding me as Moriel on Engine and just message me.
Or also on Discord.
It's Moriel. MORRIEL #4273.
That's how you know you're old, when you call it # instead of hashtag.
Oh yeah, people do call it hashtag these days, don't they? I'm old.
You're so old. All right, you old hag. Let's move from Jurok to a character you're more active on, I believe you said, which is Varesi's Sethran.
Yeah.
I believe they're also in House Ravnor, and they also have a special gift, which seems to be a bit wolfy. Let's get into that.
Yeah. And this reminds me, my profile for that character is like super old, back from when she was in House Drez. So I'm just like, I need to update that. But yeah, I
sent me for a loop because you had her as Varesi Talotha, and you were like, no, it's Varesi Sethran. I was like, but it doesn't say that on the profile.
Yeah, no, I need to edit that I need to edit that a lot. But yeah, I think she has a profile on ESRP, but I'm gonna delete that or rewrite it within the week. But yeah, Vresi is a mage character, a Dunmer originally from House Drez. She was made during the Tales of the Second Era Morrowind plotline, as a friend of mine and I got fed up with the House Drez that guild that was around at the time. We didn't feel like they were doing what we felt that Drez should be doing, so we made our own Drez guild. And
That's funny. I'm not. It makes me think of Bender from Futurama. We'll make our own house dress guild with blackjack and hookers.
yeah, basically that's what happened.
Okay.
There's no housing at the time, so we had ours at the sulfur fields or whatever it's called. There's like this small farm there, and the whole backstory was that our house grew and sold like alchemical reagents. So we had this whole sulfur thing where we were like growing like rare ingredients and selling them. But yeah, House Sethrin was a thing for a very long time, around for about a year, until I got very, very tired of being a GM. And I got very, very sick of Morrowind RP for reasons I'm not going to go into. Doesn't have to do with any particular one person, just kind of things in general. Eventually, someone else took over for me, my friend Linary, who our characters were together. And so they're just like, well, why don't I become GM? And Vresi can marry Linary, and it'll become House Talopa. And they'll be, because by this point, we had transitioned to being an Indro guild through a lot of in-character bribes and basically pledges of loyalty to certain people to get ourselves sponsorship into House Indro.
I can imagine that must have been a time and a half to try and switch political alliances. Given, I always felt that there's a bit of rigidity to the houses.
There is. I end up I end up having a conversation with Lawrence Schick, and some people who had gotten notes from like Kirkbride and stuff on like how do you change houses, and eventually I figured out a way involving basically committing your ancestors from House Drez to House Indral, basically bribing a bunch of people, having yourself swear loyalty and be a quote unquote adopted by someone in House Indral, of who had greater standing than you. Which and it took about a month of RP to get that to happen, but by the end of it, our characters became nobles of House Indral, and we switched over from being, well, we started out as House Sethrin until that got kind of boring and people were starting to be bored about it. And then I went, well, let's change the focus of House Sethrin to something slightly different. We formed what I ended up calling the Iron Hand Company, which was like the House Drez version of like the East India Company. They were a group of like merchants, mercenaries, slavers. They were a Great House Drez sponsored merchant company. And by that, I mean they had mercenaries, criminals, slavers. We would go out into other zones outside of EP once the wall fell and like enslave people, that kind of stuff. However, that apparently a lot of people ended up like not liking that as much. And so I had a big meeting with my guilds, like where should we go as a guild? And I did not want to go to House Telvanni because I'm just not a fan of Telvanni. And so we ended up going Indro because there was like no Indro guilds at the time. House Sethrin kind of became the administrators of Mournhold, and became kind of like, how to put it, almost like a police force. So we had our these Indro magistrates who went around like enforcing the law and doing all these paladin like stuff. A lot of them were corrupt, but I mean that's just how it is. Eventually, however, I just got really tired of being a GM, because if you GM a guild constantly for like 3 years, you get tired of it.
You're preaching to the choir. I was GM for about 4 years, so I know. 5 years, so I know where you're coming from.
Yeah, because I was having to balance this and House Ravnor at the same time, and it
Yeah,
was very difficult.
I can imagine jumping through hoops for all that, all that. So, how did Varesi make her way over to House Ravn?
Well, after everything with House Endril kind of fell apart and people were just not happy with it, I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to take part in this. So I'm going to make Foryata Tong. And that went on for a while. And then at the end of it exploded. She got transported to Bankurai and ended up captured by Art's character, the Grim. The Black Grim is the same. So I took part in Art's not blood. Was it Blood Moon? I forget. But basically,
I think it was Red Moon or Blood Moon, one of
yeah,
those two. But I know the werewolf event. I know what you're talking about.
yeah. I took part in that as Varesi because she was very close friends with the Black Star Pack. And what happened is that during that time, she got attacked by the Grim and infected with lycanthropy, except she didn't know she had lycanthropy. She ended up becoming a werewolf, had to basically learn how to be a werewolf during this whole plot line, and became pretty bitter enemies with the Grim. The Grim had this almost kind of like abusive father dynamic with her. Like he wanted her under his control, and she hated him. And so when he had been returned at this point, and Varesi fell right into his clutches. She was injured, she was dehydrated and hungry, and he captured her in Bankurai and attempted to mold her to his will to basically make her the witch of his pack. She ended up unwillingly assisting him in his parts of that plot line up until the time of his death, where she betrayed him and helped the people who were trying to kill him to destroy, the thing that was keeping him alive. And after that, she fled from there because there was a shadow scale there who knew she was from House Drez and just tried to kill her. So she, being an illusionist, invisibled herself and ran. And then she knew House Ravnor as allies back from when she was in the Foryata Tong, and followed people all the way over to where she knew House Ravnor was, the Gold Coast, and just kind of met up with other people from the Foryata Tong there, and they all joined House Ravnor together.
So it's been I don't want to say smooth sailing, but it's been like that ever since.
Oh, it's been smooth sailing since then. Her life is so much better now. Like, no more pressure to be a perfect unmarried noble, no more leading cults, no more, evil undead werewolf dudes trying to control her life. Everything's great.
Even though she's a werewolf herself.
She honestly doesn't mind being a werewolf. I mean, she's had a lot of time to grow used to being a werewolf. So, like, she really just doesn't mind anymore.
So then, having talked about all three characters, my next point of discussion would be looking back over everything that you've done. Would you say you're satisfied with, not satisfied, but content with the RP that you've done over the years?
Yeah, I'd say I'm pretty content. I feel that I've learned a lot. I was not a good RPer to start out with when I first started this game. I have learned so much and grown as an RPer, as a GM, as a writer and a storyteller. Being in this game, and it's taught me just a lot of incredible lessons that I wouldn't, even though there's some RP I kind of cringe at, or some RP I wish had gone better, or I regret. All of them have come together to make me into who I am now, and I just can't regret any of that.
What's one thing that you know now that you wish you knew back then?
That's a hard question. Like, there's
Just
nothing
like to
that,
make you think.
oh, God damn it, there's nothing that really jumps to mind. There are some toxic people I've met while RPing in this game, and I so wish that I knew who they were before I ever got involved in them. I would have saved myself so much just drama that like almost drove me from this game. If I had known that, because I got involved with people, or I got close to people with all of my characters, Bard and Jirok, where I thought these people were good, and then they end up like doing things that I didn't like or that were not cool, both ICly and OCly. And it's just like I look back and go, I've grown beyond that, and I'm happy I have. I just kind of wish that I had known going in what was going to happen.
I think we can move on to the next point of the podcast, and this is more of a discussion that I hope to broaden my horizons on. How do I say this? I have a bias against the supernatural aspects of RP. Essentially, it boils down to fuck vampires, fuck werewolves. I'll scream it from a mountaintop all day if I could. But obviously, you're someone who has experience with both sides. One issue I felt that I feel and still continue to feel is that I don't think folks who RP as a vampire or a werewolf take into consideration is the responsibility and the burden of it all.
Oh, I agree with you.
And it's really, I'm glad that you do, but I'm not pointing towards the folks that reside at the withered tree and go ahead and expose their fangs. I'm looking more so towards the folks that, go ahead and say a vampire that's fully fed can stand out in the sunlight, or a wolf or a werewolf RP, or someone who has had it since childhood and is able to control it. I think that I don't think that's authentic to me. And that's something that I always pursue whenever in any creative endeavor is authenticity. My question to you is, how do you make an authentic supernatural character? What would be the first step?
So your first step is always when you make a vampire or werewolf in ESO or in Elder Scrolls in general, is do your research. The people who say that a fully fed vampire can stand out in the sun are mostly wrong, unless they are playing one of the strains that can stand out in the sun anyway.
Which one? I mean, the only one that I know.
Volkihar and the Scions. Those are the two.
Can Volkihar stand out in the sun?
Yeah, they can stand out in the sun. They are weakened by the sun, but they are not harmed by it. The more that Volkihar vampires feed, the more human they appear, regardless of whether they're in the sun or not. But the less they feed, the more inhuman they appear, and that's something with all Elder Scrolls vampires. Scions can just kind of stand out in the sun regardless, but I'm not a huge fan of the bloodline that was presented in game.
How do you say it? Something sanguivoria or something.
Yeah, or noxophilic thing, whatever it's called in this game, but there's the Scions of Lamébal. People just call them Scions.
And from a gameplay standpoint, though, I can understand that, because how do you enforce that penalty upon a player that's literally standing outside, and the day and night cycles can vary from person to person whenever they're logged in the game,
Yeah, honestly, the day and night cycle thing, you just kind of have to come to an icy consensus in whatever scene you're in, what time it is. If someone says, hey, it's nighttime, you go, okay, yeah, I guess it's nighttime, or I guess it's daytime. But usually we just go by like the actual clock, usually EST or something. But really, it's one thing to make certain is that if you are playing a vampire or a werewolf and you are outed as a vampire and werewolf, you should expect to be people trying to kill you. You should
not. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I no, hands down, 100%. Unless the people you are around are either monsters themselves or okay with that, the vast majority of people in the Elder Scrolls universe should not be okay with it. It's why, like, House Ravnor has what we call the Veil. It's the kind of, this is, we do not show people the vampire side at first, ideally. Like, people join our guild knowing it's a vampire guild, but their characters have no idea it's a vampire, like Coven. It presents itself completely as an Imperial house. And if your character somehow stumbles upon the fact that this is a vampire coven, now you're in trouble, because you're like, do I reveal the fact that these people, that I know that they're vampires? They can't trust me. There's been times where people's characters have died, and they fully consented to it. There are no forced PKs, but we have killed actual characters to enforce if you find out that, we're vampires and you look like you're going to try to go tell someone about it, then we're going to drag your character off somewhere, like sacrifice them to Molai Ball.
Has there ever been an instance where the house has been out?
Where the house has been outed?
Or that there are vampires within the house or something of that nature?
We came very close once or twice. Once the Thalmor almost found out that we were vampires, but we managed to basically turn their agents against them and pin the blame on someone else.
Were they player characters, or were they?
These are all player characters. One of those Thalmor agents is still in the guild. Like, we basically subverted his character into an agent of the house rather than an agent of the Thalmor. And then secretly, without him knowing, we framed him as a criminal so that they wouldn't believe what he was saying, and that he would only be so that we would be able to, quote unquote, shelter him and keep him with us. Like, the player knew all of that was going on, but the character was kind of like thrown for a loop of, oh, all I have left now is to go to House Ravnor. There's another point where a member who had gotten to the point where the character was going to be imprisoned for attacking people or doing stuff, got out, got revealed to be a vampire, and we basically had to go the whole, we didn't know that they were vampires, we're going to be the first people to hunt them down and deliver their ashes to the Order of the Hour. We'll give our full cooperation. And the Order of the Hour guys, or whoever is playing like vampire hunters and stuff, were like, yeah, you guys have been very helpful, thank you so much for helping us hunt down this person that was masquerading as a member of your house. It's kind of a constant, we need to hide what we are or people will kill us. We're right next to a Kvatch. We're on like the coast of the Gold Coast, on the like Strid River facing.
But not only that, but there's always a level of isolation that's needed for whatever vampire character that's done, and that's another thing that I find, I suppose, irksome or irresponsible. And what I mean by this is, if you look at the Volkihar, if you look at what was his name, the dude in Oblivion, Janus
yeah, the Count.
Yeah, the Count, that dude. The Count and his wife, Lord Leviticus, that other vampire dude, they're all far removed from society. Even in the vampire quest line for Eastmarch, the vampires that you encounter, I think, in Carnwasten, is that what it's called?
Carnwasten, yeah.
Yeah, they're also secluded from society. Yeah, you get folks.
So for instance, one, I'll point out that these are all different bloodlines of vampires. While the Volkihar can stand out in sunlight, presumably, because the only bloodline we know of in Cyrodiil is the Order, the Imperial Order of Vampiricum, wherever they're called. But specifically, that's the bloodline that a lot of the vampires in our house are. They can't go out in the sun, and if they do, they burn to death. So specifically, that kind of makes us have to change our play style, right? So we don't get out a whole bunch in the community. We used to. We don't as much anymore. But it makes a lot of sense in the lore sometimes, because we're a little bit isolated of a house. We keep things a lot more internal, which is kind of what you're supposed to do. If you play a vampire, your appearances in public need to count, or you need to cover your face and cover your body so people can't see who you are. or they can't see what your features are. If you're a vampire, you shouldn't be at a tavern every night. Like you should always be afraid of discovery. You shouldn't be, you know, taking drinks of, mead where you could possibly accidentally flash your fangs or any of that stuff. You should be. I think one of the biggest issues I have is people don't play as carefully as they probably should. Not to like, you know, diss anyone. Like a lot of people, there are a lot of really really good vampire RPers who are not in House Ravnor, but there's kind of this. I've noticed people complain about it before, that there's a lot of vampire acceptance on the behalf of non-vampire players, where they're just like, oh yeah, we run a Daedric hunting company and monster hunting company, but you're a vampire and I know you and you want to be a hunter too, so I'll accept that rather than, I'm a priest of Stendarr and I should probably kill you, even if you're my friend.
Sure. And that could be that, or it could be like just trying to avoid conflict altogether. Because, for instance, if you know somebody that's a vampire character and they're outed as a vampire character, then what happens to the idea of PKing? If they're attached to that character and if they want that character to keep going, then how does that infinitely complicate their life? You know what I mean? That's a very messy subject, I would venture to say.
What we do is we always offer people chances where we're like, all right, you've done something that's gonna put you in a bad situation. Are you sure you want to follow through with this? Or okay, you've been outed. How do we sit them down and like, how do we handle this in a way that doesn't fuck your character over?
Okay.
And
So it comes down to communication first and foremost.
Yeah, it always comes down to communication. We follow lore, and we realize that if someone is out as a vampire, that's like the end of that character's life. Basically, they can't show themselves anymore. However,
just to jump in here, and I just I'm not taking shots at House Ravnor, I'm not referring to House Ravnor in any of my examples or questions. I'm referring to just the idea of the more refined vampires. This is all observations coming out of things that I've seen in, say, the Casual Monsters Discord, talking to other vampire role players that try very much to keep to the lore as well. I'm not, just so we're clear, I'm not directly addressing with House Ravnor when I say that. I hope that's clear.
Yeah. So what I was saying is, if we're going to talk about like civilized vampires, we do try to keep close to the lore. The whole idea of the kind of imperial vampire order is this bloodline of like loosely interconnected vampires that are of the same bloodline, and they are kind of trying to control Cyrodiil from the shadows. There's some kind of nebulous organization behind it all. And the idea is that a lot of the vampires of the order are those who are of like noble lineage or those who are powerful. Their patrons are Molag Bal and Clavicus Vile, so their goals are to gain power, both temporal and monetary and all kinds of stuff like that. And so it really, to follow these lore goals and lore, it kind of behooves us to be a bit refined. So like the character Gideon Ravnor is a noble, and it's in charge of a noble house, and so it kind of behooves us to slowly and carefully and surreptitiously gain power and benefit ourselves in a way that doesn't draw attention to us.
That's another thing that I also noticed is that more of the serious vampire role players to some degree. Well, I mean, with the exception of Jurok, obviously, but I mean, like from overall the overarching RP population, when I think about it holistically, anyway. It's also a bit difficult as well when I think about it from an OOC standpoint, because if you're going to try and do it correctly, there are some constraints that you have to abide to in order to go for the authentic experience. At least that's what I think.
Definitely.
In my point of view, it's I'm trying to say this without sounding like an asshole. Really, I am. I'm
Just
trying to.
just say it. I'm not going to be offended.
No, I don't want to offend the listeners. This thing.
I'm sure they'll understand.
I don't think they will, but. Okay, let me preface it by saying this. I have high standards for myself when it comes to roleplay, and my pursuit of authenticity in roleplay is guided by those high standards. I understand this, and I understand that everybody has different standards for themselves and the roleplay that they want to get. Some folks are casual, some folks are hardcore, some folks are lore Nazis, some folks are lore flexible, some folks want in the middle. There are always shades of gray. I understand this perfectly. But what I want the most and what I'd like to see ideally is something that you stick right into Elder Scrolls and you'd be right there. So RPing in ESO would just be like sort of as if you were in a living world of Elder Scrolls. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right. So with that being said, a number of my, I suppose, grievances is that a lot of the times what I perceive to be the constraints of vampirism or lycanthropy is not being followed, and therefore it becomes jarring for me in my pursuit of authenticity, and therefore I become bitter. And there are many times where I have to remind myself, like, take it easy, dude. It's just make believe. What the fuck are you doing? Come on. But at the same time, I can't help but pendulum swing back and say, like, God damn it. Why is this person hosting some sort of public event on their character that's apparently a noble and then is coming out and is secretly a vampire, and apparently they're wearing some sort of pendant that apparently absorbs sunlight and converts it into magicka, because apparently all light is magicka. It's like,
That's true.
it's like, and I'm not saying play to a trope. I'm not saying, and I'm definitely saying always play your characters individually. Please, I hope people understand that. But at the same time, it's very hard to try and keep to the constraints of, you should be careful of what you should do, but at the same time, not cage yourself or write yourself into a corner. That I understand perfectly. No, I don't understand that perfectly, actually. Otherwise, I wouldn't be having this conversation with you now, wouldn't I? See, this is where you're playing therapist and I'm talking to myself constantly like an idiot.
So let me take that apart a bit. And not in a bad way, but in a, like, taking parts and speaking of that. Let's talk about vampire guilds. Why like, how did they work in lore? Well, we know in lore from examples from Skyrim and from Oblivion that and Morrowind that vampires do gather in groups and they do form hierarchies. A lot of times they are away from society. However, we have examples of them presenting a facade to society of being people of influence, people in power, while secretly behind that, holding some size coven behind that. So I think so long as you stick to that idea when you have a vampire coven, you're not really falling away from lore. If you're going out and you're hosting events, which my guild does, we host events pretty much monthly, sometime.
I should add, which is great because more public events, the better, of course.
Yeah, there's not a huge amount of Imperial public events. We try to host like celebratory balls for in-game holidays. We plan these out a lot, very, very long time in advance. And remember, these are all hosted at night. None of them are hosted at day, or else like half of our members wouldn't even be able to go outside. It's always, we have to be very careful how we present ourselves in public, because there's always that fear of, if you fuck up, you reveal yourself, and that comes down on the rest of us.
And that's it's a very interesting avenue to RP, I would say, because there's a lot of pressure to try and make sure that everything is down to a T, that you don't get discovered.
Yeah, exactly. I do believe that lore can be a bit, you can flex the lore so long as you make sense, but like you always got to stay within kind of the absolute bounds of lore. Yeah, having, oh god, I had never thought of having a pendant that could absorb sunlight and turn into magicka, because light is magicka. But I'm just like, I don't think that works. I would have to think about that, because that is a very interesting idea and tangentially like might possibly work in lore, but I don't know.
I mean, that's what I saw. That's what I observed. So, and hopefully, the person that that I took that from won't take offense. These are just opinions anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving right along, then you also play. You've what your experience with lycanthropy, right? And there, no, here, let me put it this way. So I feel as though that the idea of it being a curse is less underplay. It is less played than the idea of it being a gift. So, for instance, with the new DLC that's coming out, right? What I've seen now is that there's a Children of Hersene Discord hub going on, and it's kind of a beautiful thing because now the werewolf players have something to rally around, and they get their own taste of content, albeit it's content that's geared towards, I suppose, killing them, but that's neither here nor there. It's the fact that they have something to work with. Lore is added on. It's much more interactive, but at the same time, the worry is here again, that idea of responsibility is not being taken into account. At least I don't think so, not from what I've seen. My question to you is, what do you think makes a supernatural role player responsible for when they're tackling the supernatural lore? I don't know if I think I ran into questions with that with that question. Holy crap.
So, okay. Playing as a vampire or werewolf or whatever is it both opens up new avenues of RP and gives you a burden to play within these new constraints that you've set for yourself. Because it does give you constraints. Some people kind of ignore the constraints, which is, I think, what your problem is. It really is up to anyone to determine whether or not it's up to that person to determine whether or not their vampirism is a gift or a curse. For for some people who have been in their guild, vampirism's a curse. They're trying to cure themselves. For some people, like I'll say, like the other two officers in our guild and guild leader, it's a gift. Specifically, like Gideon goes on it in the way like Harkon does. It's a deal. It's a compact between him and the gods who have granted vampirism, and so long as he continues to be faithfully follow those precepts, he can be continue to be gifted with eternal life. Not that he would stop being a vampire if he stopped being a servant of Moab Bal, but yeah, so I guess how do you make someone responsible? It depends on what your idea of responsible is. Like, I get the feeling that you want people to treat it like it's a curse, that you want people to treat it like it's a burden, that it should be a detriment to their normal interactions. And I think it both is and isn't. Yeah, those who treat it like it's a curse, whether or not you treat it like a curse, like you can no longer, if you're say like an order vampire, or like one of the Elite Bay vampires, you can't go in sunlight or you'll die. But you can treat it like a gift. You can be like, oh, I'm great for being a vampire, but you'll still die if you go out in the sun. It's still confining you. If that makes any sense, like.
No, it does, and well, first of all, I'm trying to be respectful and listen to everything that you say so I can mull over and digest it for myself. Secondly, I'm trying to mull over the idea of, it definitely depends on how a person looks at it. So say if someone's brought into a coven, or let's say, for instance, like it's established that you can have vampiric spawns, I believe, right? Like in Oblivion, there's the orc who's the son of Lord Leviticus, and he's vampiric spawn.
I mean,
but I'm saying
half vampires is not a thing that anyone does. Don't make half I'm straight out say, don't make half vampires.
No. I'm not I'm not endorsing that idea. I'm saying that if it's something that someone has grown into, right? If it's a way of life that they've known for a very long time, then I don't think that they would look at it as a curse. Of course, they would look at it as a blessing that, yeah, they have all these abilities that these normal normies don't have. Can they, you know, turn into mist and dissipate and head over to some other location? No, they can't. Their heightened or their physical and magical abilities are heightened extremely. They're much more durable and all that stuff, and they can live on for years and years and years. Of course, that's gonna somebody who looks at the positives and something like that. Yeah, of course they're gonna look at it as a blessing. But now, if we're looking at, say, somebody like the narrator from those Iliac Bay lore books, right? He's terrified of what he is in the beginning before he slowly starts to grow into what he is and becomes more comfortable in his own skin.
Yeah, it's there. I think there's a wealth of stories that you can tell with vampirism and lycanthropy, and that it doesn't have to be the center of what your character is. Even it can be something that is a major influence as well. So like my character is still my character, even if she will eventually become a vampire. I think uh, there we don't have any concrete plans, but I think eventually my character will be embraced as a vampire. That's not gonna. I mean, that will add new dimension onto who she is as a character, but it won't like irreversibly like. I don't think it will radically change who she is.
That's up to you to decide because it's your
Yeah,
character.
yeah, and see, like that's for me. For other people, it's like, oh, I've been cursed. This is. I had another character I was playing for a short storyline, who he was a Brett Knight that had been cursed with vampirism, and he was looking for a cure. That his whole world revolved around trying to find a cure. So it really just depends on what story you are trying to tell as an RPer.
That's really what it comes down to,
Yeah, pretty much with anything.
right? I appreciate the conversation, Miss. Thank you.
It's fine.
I also apologize for the slips.
Nah, it's good. Thank you. Thank you for having this conversation with me. I mean, I'm happy to help however I can.
Alrighty, here we go. So, Mario,
Yes.
again, thank you so much for talking to me about your characters. Thank you so much for the discussion, and thank you so much for broadening my horizons. I hope that everybody else, if I have offended you with my opinions, well, I don't apologize. It's there. I am free to have my opinions, and you are free to be offended. However, nevertheless, this has been a journey, and I'm grateful to have it. We are now gonna have to close that journey, though, and we close it out in the traditional 10-item questionnaires, which will bring this episode to an end. 10 more questions, and then you're loose. You ready?
I'm ready.
Number 1. What is your favorite word?
Fungi.
Number 2. What is your least favorite word?
Moist.
Number 3. What turns you on creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
I really love like dramatic or tense scenes, things that build up like incredible emotion going towards a just a climax of like character development. It's like it really like I watch anime or read manga or watch TV or movies or anything, and whenever I get to those scenes that just stand out in any creative work, I'll always be left like kind of going over that scene in my head and thinking like, well, what if I change this or that? What if things were changed here? Like what would happen? How would these new characters that have been created by these events, react to all of these situations? And I guess it's the writer in me that feels that.
Number 4. What turns you off?
Bland things like I like like casual RP. I really do like casual RP, but sometimes I get kind of tired of it. There's only so much you can do when you are sitting around a table talking with people. And I feel as though I want to do something, you know? So it's not so much a turn off as I have a limit to how much I can stand of it.
Number 5. What is your favorite curse word?
Bastard.
You know, that's an often underappreciated word. I like that.
It's a good one.
Number 6. What sound or noise do you love?
What sound or noise do I love?
Mm-hmm.
I'm a huge fan of music. I usually like very like how to describe it. Noise wise, I like kind of like gentle sounding noises. So like I used to grow up at like near the woods. So like the woods during the day, kind of like, you know, things are alive around you, and you know it's the peaceful kind of sound.
What sound or noise do you hate?
I hate that sound, those like what are they called? Vuvuzela, the things that people have at like soccer matches and they blow into. I hate those things. Like
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about.
I absolutely
Yeah.
hate them.
Number 8. What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
I have always sort of wondered what would I do if I had not gone to like computer science and programming like I did. And I kind of looked at being like an archaeologist. I was always really interested in that, but I just never pursued it. And if I could go back, I think I would.
Number 9. What profession would you not like to do ever in a million years? They could not pay you enough to do it.
I cannot be a plumber.
And finally, number 10. If heaven exists, if it does, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
I don't know. I just want to if I die and end up in heaven, I would like just a warm greeting. You know, you got all your favorite stuff here. Good to see you. Hope you had a good time. If not, let's talk about it. You know, I'll make you feel better. You know, here's all your family you've lost, and here's all your favorite stuff. And I'm just kind of hoping it'll be a good time if it's up there.
I think that's what everyone wants when they go to heaven.
Generic statement. Sorry.
No, I was just adding to that. Anyway, that brings this episode to an end. Thank you, dear viewers, for sticking with us this long. Moriel, I'm sorry this episode took so long.
I think it was partly because we got sidetracked on anime and manga for like an hour. But thank you for being willing to listen to me ramble on. It was fun.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye. Like what you listen to? Well, here's an obligatory promotion designed to make sure you tune in for more. Click that subscribe button, hit the like button, and leave a comment if you're feeling generous. If you'd like these episodes on the go, you can also download them directly from rphq.org. RPHQ offers roleplayers a wide variety of resources to draw from to enhance their own role-playing experience. Want to roleplay a blacksmith but you have no dang clue how dang blacksmithing works? RPHQ. Trying to figure out how to make your players fear you in your tabletop game? RPHQ. Need some online links to dice rollers? RPHQ. Stop on by and see what you can learn by perusing the site. Thanks so much, folks. Stay frosty.